It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy, Alex, and Jason, they're all here. We'll talk about the updates to all of the OSs and why. Apple's Vision Pro Developer Kit ships. You won't believe the restrictions. And trouble in France. It's all coming up next on MacBreak Weekly. This show is brought to you by Cisco Meraki. Without a cloud-managed network, businesses inevitably fall behind. Experience the ease and efficiency of Meraki's single platform to elevate the place where your employees and customers come together. Cisco Meraki maximizes uptime and minimizes loss to digitally transform your organization. Meraki's intuitive interface, increased connectivity, and multi-site management keep your organization operating seamlessly and securely wherever your team is. Let Cisco Meraki's 24/7 available support help your organization's remote, on-site, and hybrid teams always do their best work. Visit meraki.cisco.com/twit.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 879, recorded Tuesday, July 25th, 2023, above the Hip Hop Dance Studio. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Discourse, the online home for your community. Discourse makes it easy to have meaningful conversations and collaborate anytime, anywhere. Visit discourse.org/twit to get 1 month free on all self-serve plans. And by AG1. Take ownership of your health with a simpler, effective investment with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase of a subscription. Go to drinkag1.com/MacBreak. And by Fastmail. Reclaim your privacy, boost productivity, and make email yours with Fastmail. Try it now, free for 30 days at fastmail.com/twit. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show we cover the latest Apple news, of which there is a paucity. However, we shall soldier on with Jason Snell of sixcolors.com.
I was very excited. I was thinking, oh boy, Leo, what's the news? Tell me. Let me know.
I got stuff.
Let's find out.
I got stuff. Andy Nacco also here from WGBH Boston. Hello, Andrew.
Hey there, ho there.
Nice to see you. Hope all's well in beautiful New England.
Yeah, we're
Muddling
staying inside, rubbing ice all over ourselves.
My poor mom. Oh my gosh, boiling up.
Welcome to the United States.
She's boiling up. Yeah, everybody's this way. Alex Lindsay, where it is in beautiful Marin County, California, where it is nothing but beautiful and sunny and rich and wealthy. Hello, Alex.
I'm on the least rich part of Marin.
Yeah,
like you just keep driving. You have to explain to someone that you go, you ask, someone asked how we ended up living where we lived. I said, you just ask your wife what you want and you drive north until you can afford it.
That's exactly what we did back in 1992 or 93. Right. And of course, we drove right through Marin and ended up in Petaluma, just on the other side.
We have turkeys, though. See, it's different. Like, we have turkeys and deer.
Yeah, you're in the country. Yes.
We're in the country.
Yeah, so are we. Yeah. We have...
you're pretty out there. You're pretty far.
Lisa strews... Lisa bought 100 pounds of walnuts. Because, bird food isn't good enough for the birds. So she bought 100 pounds...
Do the birds eat the walnuts?
Oh, yeah. And sunflowers. And she strews it on the ground. But it's not just the birds. It turns out... it is also the turkeys. We have 4 turkey families, 4 mothers and their babies, because it's that time of year. And turns out it attracts skunks.
Oh boy!
It was a little.
You got to be careful though. If you're really reflective, one thing that we learned is that if you give a really reflective car, the turkeys will attack it. They'll be like, "You looking at me? You looking at you?" Like literally, they're like angry at the car, and they put dents in one of my cars.
Oh, that's it. Because we have a peacock.
I could hear this donk, 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 and I was like, "What is going on?" I came around, and there's a turkey attacking my car.
Stupid. They think it's another turkey. We have peacocks who come up to the sliding glass window and look at themselves, but they don't seem unhappy. They start preening.
Exactly.
It's quite the wildlife scene out there. Hey, thanks to the anonymous Apple fan who sent Alex, and by the way, he's giving you the title Commander Rebel Mac Unit.
There you go.
5 of these fabulous.
I'm definitely not close to the commander of the Rebel
Apple
Mac unit.
reusable face masks.
More of a private of the Rebel Mac unit. Maybe not even. I was like, maybe yeah. That's all I did there.
Look at that. And they're not sealed, so they're sealed in the pouches. They're not the back boxes.
I'm super excited. They're really nice masks.
Got the
Those are the
clips.
best. If we get,
nice.
If we ever get another time we need to wear masks, I now have the best.
Well, there are those who Jeff Jarvis is just on an airplane flying out. He's doing an event tonight at. By the way, last chance if you want to go to the Commonwealth Club and see Jeff Jarvis talk about the history of printing in the internet. Commonwealth Club tonight. And
what are you talking about? Printing and the internet, or?
Well, his new book, the Gutenberg parenthesis, is the premise of which is we've seen it all before, right? And so what we have to learn from the advent of the printing press in today's internet age. Let me just see what the name of his title of his lecture is: The Age of Print and the Internet.
Where is Jeff based?
He's in New Jersey, just outside.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Bedminster.
But he's out here.
Well, and the reason it came up in my mind is because he wore a mask. He says I was the only one on the plane with a mask on. But you can be sure Jeff will be healthy as he speaks. It says tomorrow at 1 a.m. at the Commonwealth Club. I think it's just confused. I do believe that's a 7 p.m. appearance. But if you go to the Commonwealth's website, it's today. Yes, it is definitely today. The beautiful Commonwealth Club. Thank you, Google, for saying it's at 1 a.m. Jeff will be happy to do a second speech.
6 p.m.
6 p.m. Okay. Yeah, Lisa's going. There it is. Thank you for getting that. So I did find some news. I looked hard. First of all, we should say there are updates going out. iOS 16.6 came out yesterday. Ventura 13.5. These are updates to patch, Apple says, actively exploited vulnerabilities. So these are not things to wait upon. Also, if you're on an older version of iOS 15.7.8, iPadOS 15.7.08, Monterey 12.6.8, Big Sur 11.7.9. For older devices, basically check your system updates. This is it feels like the third fix. Didn't we have, how many rapid security responses do we have for this WebKit vulnerability? There was, several of them, I think. But now this is a full version, which will, in fact, Apple's security support website lists a largish number of security things that are being patched today. Or yesterday.
What do you think the protocol is inside Apple to decide whether or not something merits one of these push-outs? Because I know I myself, I'm getting a little bit confused because I saw the last one and then I thought, did I forget to install the one that came last week, or is this a new one?
So there was A.
You can't pull the cord too
this
often.
month, there's been security response A. There was B, but they pulled that back, and C. And then that came out July 12th, and now here we are on the 24th, 12 days later. And they're doing the big updates, which apparently includes some of those fixes too. So I'm not sure. Jason, do you have any insight?
No, I don't. I'm with Andy. I tried to get the words out, and no is about the best I can do. There are lots of them. I'd say also don't forget. Am I on a beta? What's on the beta?
Oh, yeah.
Is the beta getting these? No, it isn't. Is it?
No.
There's a lot going on. I think the answer is if Apple tells you to install something, you should install it and just go ahead and install it.
And this is the alert that there is something for many of us, and you should check.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't, I have to say, it does not happen automatically right away. Eventually, I think they'll force you to do it, right? I've never gotten to that point. I always see a little reminder,
Well,
and I do
they'll never force you to do it, but they send you,
start
they'll alert
alerting
you
you.
that there's an update. And what they want you to do is put in your password and update it overnight, which then doesn't work. And it yells at you again the next day to put in your password and update it overnight, which, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Have you guys experienced this thing where like you defer it, and then like your Mac just starts acting real screwy, as if it did a partial install waiting for you to pull the ripcord on the full install and it broke something? Because that's happened to me many, many times where I can't afford to do a restart that's required. So I'm putting it off, saying, okay, do it tonight. No, do it tomorrow. No, do it tomorrow. And then at some point I'll get a massive problem that will kind of force me to do it. I'm not saying that that's part of Apple's update strategy, which is to basically make sure that, hey, he can't use the uppercase E or punctuation until he actually restarts.
That's more of a Microsoft deal, frankly.
True.
It only half works. I don't know. I've never experienced that. Anybody else? But see, I'm pretty aggressive about just going, oh, there's an update. That's why, as you can tell, here we are day after the updates came out, and I'm telling everybody update. So, and I think that's reasonable when there's a 0 day, when there's something actively being exploited. That's probably a good time. Although, as you've pointed out before, Andy, we're not the target for these 0 days.
Right. I mean, it's usually when the 0 day hits, it's a very specific set of circumstances for a very specific set of targeted users. And if they've seen it in the wild, it's not that they've seen everybody be taken down, because we would have learned that through CNN, not through a software update.
Right.
But still, as a matter of principle, it's these little things that will get you in the butt if you keep sitting on them.
And it gets back to, if everybody kind of keeps up with this, it makes it not a target either, because it's not, it dulls off the effect. I mean, if you look at these big hacking deals, the community, it's community immunity, a herd immunity, because it's just not going to go anywhere, and so it's not worth developing for. You see these huge hacks that are happening. Generally, these are large, corporate networks that are very old and no one's updated for a long time, and that provides it's worth spending the time to figure out how to hack them.
And as a result, they're very expensive. And you go to places like Pegasus, the Israeli company, which has a different name, but is the same company, right. And you buy those for $1 million because you're a nation state and you really want to get James Bond into your evil lair. Okay, enough of that. Just do it. Update. Unity, Apple Vision Pro, and Apple Vision Pro developer kits have arrived. I saw James Thompson's post about the Apple Vision Pro developer kit.
Everybody I know who's a developer has filled out that form.
Yeah,
please.
It's free, right? You have to be a developer, which is what, $99. But the kit itself is free, but you have to return. It needs to be returned upon request, but that's not all. No, there are quite a few security and secrecy arrangements.
Yeah, you must keep it. It must only be kept in the place where we ship it. You must keep it in a place that is not a transparent cube that people can look into. It must be lockable. If you're going to leave it for more than 10 days, you need to contact Apple and say, do you have any tips for me to keep this thing in its locked Pelican case, which is what you're going to be provided. You do not show it to your friends or family, and most importantly, do not taunt Happy Fun Ball. Those are the rules. I don't make the rules. I just report them. Basically, they're serious. They don't want this thing getting out, and the other one is, on request, you will return it to Apple immediately. That's part of the deal too. Yeah,
you agree that all access to, usage of, and storage use of the DK development kit will be in a private, secure workspace accessible only by you and your authorized developers, unaccountably capitalized. What is that? Is that a lawyer thing? You and your authorized developers, e.g., fully enclosed with solid doors, floors, walls, and ceiling, and locks that can be engaged when the DK is in use. Nobody walking in on you. You must ensure that unauthorized persons, including any family, friends, roommates, or household employees, no evil maids allowed, do not access, view, handle, or use the DK. And definitely don't let Leo Laporte see it. When in use, the DK should be in your positive control. On your
make sure that there are no air ducts in the building that Tom Cruise could possibly weasel himself through.
On your person,
especially Tom Cruise,
or within your direct line of sight at all times. What? You must ensure I'm looking at you. I see you, DK. You must
positive control.
You must ensure the DK is passcode protected. Never leave the DK unattended. When not in use, turn off the DK and store it in its locked Pelican case. That's isn't that spelled with a K? Maybe I'm wrong. In a locked space that only you, capital Y, have access to, e.g., a locked room or closet, a safe, or a locked drawer. The DK may not be moved from or taken away from its shipped-to address by you or your authorized developers without Apple's prior written consent. If you will be away from your workspace for more than 10 days, consult with your Apple point of contact about how to keep the DK safe while you are away. You must agree to restrict access to DK to you and your authorized developers and take all reasonable precautions to safeguard the DK from loss or theft. But that's normal, right? That's if you got an iPhone 15, you'd be signing that too.
Pretty much.
Sure. Also, we don't know. It could be Donkey Kong. We don't know.
DK could be Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
Could be. That'd be quite a surprise, right? You got to keep that a secret.
Or the dead Kennedys. This is supposed to be entertainment based.
Well, it could be tested. It could be a test. They send you Donkey Kong first, and then you tweet out, I filled out all his forms, and all I got was a Donkey Kong game. And then they're like, don't send him the headset.
Please return Donkey Kong to us immediately.
Yes.
Why did you make me dodge flaming barrels for 10 minutes? We just want to make sure you were very, very serious about wanting to develop VR apps.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, of course, I saw Matthew Casanelli say, do shortcut developers count? Are they developers? You have to be a developer, right?
And how many of them? I mean, even somebody like David Smith or James Thompson as an indie developer who's just a single developer, are they? How many of these do they have? Right? Do you really need to be at a very high kind of level of revenue in order to get this? Then again, I mean, I know we're going to talk about in a little bit Mark Gurman's story about, what's the developer market for Vision Pro apps and who's going to be interested in developing for it. But the fact is, Apple does benefit from people like indie developers like James and David Smith to do showcase apps, even if they are just these indie apps. They make the platform cooler. So it'll be interesting. Can they even admit that they have it? It'll be interesting to find out in the end when they write their memoirs who actually got one.
Well, and also, this is why some developers are pretty careful about what they say in public, because of course this is all subjective as well. I don't think that sending a bunch of
100%.
A headset is probably not going to Epic.
It's amazing that James Thompson gets any promotion from Apple at all, given that he talks about this stuff and complains and gets rejected and stuff like that. But he also does good work. And embraces Apple's new technologies, and that's part of the secret sauce with any of those indie developers. Is you may say, indie developers are small and they don't matter, but they bring a cachet to the platform that Apple really likes. So they're definitely a part of the gestalt of any new platform.
They're just kind of as a side thing. Unity has also shipped its beta version of its development tools.
Super smart. By Unity, I think that that development, I believe that they put out a sample app that you can kind of tear apart as a developer, and Unity should be doubling down on this. This is their moment, to take advantage of this. And so if they're smart, there's going to be tons of education. There's going to be tons of outreach. There's going to be tons of example files. They're going to build all these things out because Apple right now, I think, is kind of filling a gap with Unity. And the key is to take advantage of that gap and really make sure that a lot of developers are considering their platform to use it. Because you can't do everything you need to do in the core Apple development tools just yet. So I think it really behooves Unity to jump on this. We'll see how hard they push.
Yeah.
It sounds like they've been working on this for years, right? But they're out there now, and they're the one. If you want to make these kind of apps for Vision Pro, Unity is the way you're going to do it.
Well, you can build. There's definitely apps that you can build using, the tools and Reality Composer Pro, and there's definitely things you can build out there. But as soon as you start getting into real games or really complex apps, you're 100%.
This class of app, right? Because this is the one that's there, and the other one is in a series of lawsuits with Apple and is not going to be there.
Yeah, my guess is they've been working with Apple on this since about 6 months after that lawsuit.
Yeah,
because Unreal was in all those meetings before that. I mean, Unreal was in all the keynotes before they did the lawsuit.
Unity announced at WWDC, Apple announced Polyspatial, which is Unity's new technology and visionOS kit. Here's the get started with spatial creation. Your apps will get access to benefits such as pass-through and dynamic foveated rendering, in addition to popular Unity features like AR Foundation and AR Interaction Toolkit. By combining Unity's authoring and simulation capabilities with Reality Kit, which is Apple's technologies, managed app rendering, content created with Unity will look and feel at home. So it sounds like your existing content created with Unity will look and feel at home on the Vision Pro. Yes, that's part of the pitch. It's for porting as well, right? And but in fact, these are the choices. What are your goals during the beta? Create a new fully immersive gamer app, create a new immersive gamer app, port an existing immersive gamer app, port a mobile gamer app to be immersive on this platform. So that's obviously part of it.
I think that Apple will probably mix the marketing as they move forward with when they start rolling out the headset between big companies that are porting an iPad app or porting something over, but a lot of the focus is going to be on stuff that's really built for the headset. So I think that porting over, if you're doing something really important, you might be able to get away with it. But if you're not, you probably want to build something for it.
So as you said, Jason, we should probably mention Mark Bloomberg. You might as well be Mark Bloomberg.
I call him that too.
Yep. Mark Gurman's
reporting once again on Tim Apple.
His Power On newsletter title: Apple's headset hinges on apps, but don't expect developers to flock to it. His contention is that A, it's an expensive device. B, Apple's already said we're not, or has implied we're not going to be able to make 1 million of them. In fact, the supply chain says it may just be in the few hundred thousands. Compared to 130 million iPhone, iPads, and Macs. So that poses the question, says Mr. Tim Bloomberg, will the Vision Pro App Store be a success like the one on the iPhone and the iPad, or will it flop like the Apple Watch and TV? Oh, I forgot. There are app stores for the Watch and TV, aren't there?
An iMessage. Don't forget the iMessage.
An iMessage. Stickers. Everybody get your Vision Pro stickers.
Sticker pack.
They'll float in space.
Safari plugins too. Yeah. It's hard to say. I mean, I don't think that any developer is going to be wisely deciding that, hey, we're going to divert a whole bunch of our budget and our personnel into developing an app for this platform that, as you said, might only have about 200,000 seats in the entire audience, and is probably doesn't represent the full spectrum of users that you would normally target an app launch at. You're talking about a really small wedge of the pie, no matter how you slice it. And I do think that nonetheless, the smaller developers, A, because they're going to be excited to develop this stuff, B, because this is their side hustle, this is their side gig, believe it or not. They're very, very successful consultants on the side, and they do actually maintain 1 or 2 very successful apps in the time that they want to use their brain for other things. I think those people are going to be the people who do the weird stuff that will at least give Apple something interesting to sell off and might make them, I don't know, $10,000-$20,000 a year, maybe. It's I agree with the idea that you're not going to see large developers investing huge amounts of money in this platform. Microsoft is already on board, but they kind of have to be, because they want to put Office everywhere.
Go ahead.
I felt like reading the article. I felt like it came from an analyst, but not from someone who actually.
Yeah. It feels like an analyst. Yeah.
Because the thing is that there are so many opportunities when a new platform comes out. There's an enormous number of opportunities because you have a bunch of people with nothing else to put on the device, and they just spent $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 on this device. They spending another $1,000 over the next couple months buying apps for it is not probably going to be a big deal to most of the ones that are buying the headset in the first place. So they're going to be buying because they're going to be excited about it. They're going to want to show their friends. They're going to want to figure out what works, what doesn't work for the people who are buying these. If they're $10, they're going to buy a lot of $10 apps. If they're more than that. I mean, he talks about them becoming more expensive because it's a smaller market. That gets away from the I'll just buy it to see how it turns out. That's a couple coffees worth of cost. If it got up, I know for me at $20, I'd be like, well, we'll see. At $10, I'd probably buy anything that looks remotely interesting, for it to just see how it works. I think people are going to want to explore, and a lot of companies, a lot of developers in the past have put out things that are okay, but interesting and made a lot of money. So I think that people will they'll do a lot of work to try to have something on the day it starts to ship, so that when people download it, they go to the App Store and they see, oh, this is a really cool tour of something or other app, and there will be some of those out there because of all these developer kits that are going out. So there's going to be 50 or 100 or 200 apps to play with day one. And I think that a lot of people are going to buy them.
Did we see that with the iPhone? Because remember when the App Store launched on the iPhone, here you have a relatively expensive device and suddenly you can buy apps. Did we see an influx of people? There certainly were a lot of fart apps.
Yeah. Fart apps, flashlight apps. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Alex.
No. Yeah. That's the point.
But that was a primed product, right? The iPad might be the better match because that was a brand new product nobody had, and it opened with an app store. And we saw, there were a lot of products that made a lot of apps that made a lot of money on day one. The prices actually started a little higher too, and then they kind of came back down to earth over time.
Yeah. Here's a graph of Apple App Store quarterly apps and games from 2009 to 2022, and you can see it builds. Of course, it probably builds with the number of units sold as well.
Right.
Yeah, but I think your point, Alex, is well taken. That there is going to be, even if it's only 250,000 people in the first year with these Vision Pro headsets, there's going to be if each of them spells $1,000, that's $250 million out there.
And
Gurman, here's what
it's
Gurman writes specifically. He says the addressable market for the Vision Pro is 1/500th that of other Apple devices. That's potentially a major roadblock to developers investing in the product. I've spoken to a slew, I don't know what that technically is that 1,000, of high-profile developers in the virtual reality space, and that reason alone, the lack of units, has them wary of building an app for the Vision Pro. They also say, and this is interesting, and this may be relevant too, the lack of a VR controller means that content and games on other VR platforms like the Meta Quest won't easily be able to make the jump. One well-known developer told Power On, if you're making something for it, either Apple has to pay you to develop it or you're building the app just to create some buzz.
I don't think Apple's going to pay anybody to develop it.
Me neither.
That's kind of religious there, but I do think that there is I think that the one place you could see Apple, paying for is like Apple Arcade. They haven't talked about games at all, but Apple Arcade hires people to build apps for them all the time. So having a solid stable of apps coming out, of games coming out, is something that they will design, and they're probably going to look for games that really stretch the envelope of what the headset can do. I do think that there are. It's a real opportunity for the folks that do take that chance. There's the chance of drinking a lot of people's milkshakes pretty early on, but by getting in and getting ahead of some of these things. So,
here's the other data point that Mark throws in. The track record of Meta does not bode well. Since Meta's VR App Store launched 8 years ago, developers have only generated about $1.5 billion, despite Meta having sold 20 million Quests. So he's saying
it's very hard to ever compare somebody else's track record to Apple's track record. Right. It just doesn't. It usually doesn't. It doesn't line up. I think that's. Meta is. I've developed stuff for the Quest, or not for the Quest, but for Oculus, and it's hard.
It's hard. It's Unity as well, is it not?
We used Unity to do it.
Yeah.
But it's just. It was quirky. And so it wasn't as nearly as simple as putting stuff out there that this will be. So, or that I think it'll be. So
he also says he wouldn't be surprised, and I think he's right on this. It's kind of what you were saying, Alex. If $20 is the new $1 for most Vision Pro apps, we could see many of them costing between $50 and $250, especially in the graphic designer productivity categories. Games may be priced closer to their console equivalents, somewhere in the range of $40 to $60.
I'd love to see if he's right on that, because I just don't think coming out of the gate that's what's going to happen. What you're going to do, because the thing is that at $10 or $15, a lot of people who bought this headset will just knee jerk buy the app to see how it works. And if you start making it higher than that, people are going to start thinking about it. And I think that's, at the beginning, like I could definitely see more expensive apps coming out, but I have a hard time seeing a much higher price point than that.
Disney Plus is already slated to come to Vision Pro. Of course, Apple made a big deal about that at the keynote. Apple's wide-ranging deal with Amazon, writes Mark, probably means Prime Video will have a similar arrangement. Microsoft and Zoom have committed to the platform, so that would be Teams and Zoom. But the biggest streamer of all, writes Mark Gurman, Netflix will take a pass. I'm told the company has no current plans to develop a native app for the Vision Pro. Not that a native app, as he points out, for Netflix would be anything different than, I'm in a theater now looking at a screen. You could still run the Netflix app on it and be looking at video, right? I don't know how this works.
Yeah. And they don't have a lot of 3D content. I think that like Disney's wanting to be there. Disney's got a lot of movies with 3D content. I think that Apple's probably going to put all that 3D content in their store as well, so you can buy or rent 3D video. Netflix may just not prioritize it, and that's fair. I'm sure you'll be able to watch it on your iPad, but I just don't. I think it comes down to, do you have a lot of 3D content? Because I think this thing will actually be a pretty great 3D content viewing device, and so there's an opportunity there. But it may just be that Netflix looks at it and goes, not enough for us to gear up our line and maybe change our contracts to get access to 3D content.
Yeah, I mean, that's the low-hanging fruit. I think that a lot of what we're going to see in the first year that's commercially released is the low-hanging fruit. Like video player, great, wonderful. We have that already, but now we have it on this. Great. We'll see a lot of simple apps that probably will occur to most developers, and one or two of those developers will be out there fast enough or with enough marketing to have a success with it. I think that a lot of makers of really good and successful and well-known iPad apps will want to be able to say that we've updated this for Vision. It's not just simply the iPad app. You're using the new Vision version of Omni Outliner or whatever. But it's just, hey, it's the same interface, but we've added some charms to make it a little bit easier to use. This is why I say that I think the first year you're going to see a lot of low-hanging fruit. It's going to take a long time before we see the sort of apps that justify, I'm not talking about the expense, but justify the existence of a platform like this, to say here's an app and here's an experience that could not have been done possibly on any non-immersive platform whatsoever. This is why there was a gaping hole. There was a gaping hole in the landscape of what computing needed to be, and this fills that exactly. I don't think we're going to see that in the first year, and that's what I mean when I say that I'm not sure that a lot of developers are going to be putting like $1 million, $500,000, $150,000 into developing a brand new productivity app that they can then charge that kind of money for and make a success out of it. I just don't see it.
What is the fart app for the Vision Pro? What is the low-hanging fruit?
Well, viewers, I mean,
I don't want a fart app. I'll tell you that right now. Or a flashlight app. So,
and an augmented reality camera app where you can look inside the room and place props there, place avatars there, and basically take pictures and direct your own scenes, at least in static form. I think that's what.
I think that Space Invaders game you talked about last week, where we're actually. I played that the other
that's cool.
Although you're going around with buildings and space invaders are coming down.
Although they definitely tell you not to take it outside and not to walk around. Like it's not designed. Right. It's definitely not designed for that. So it's not. It's probably
Space Invaders in my bedroom is what it is. Yeah.
I mean, I think exploring spaces is something that'll be interesting. If they can get right now the new HEVC streaming platform is not really it's not fully cooked yet. So how we deliver that is going to be something people are interested in, to be able to deliver 3D content to it. Just basic video viewers you probably see a lot of those, for that kind of thing. But I think that games will be something, games and some base educational stuff about how to take something to look at it, like a molecule or something like that. They're going to want to show those kinds of things, I think. The cool thing is that it can respond to, I mean, it is really magical the way that when the phone works, it just responds to your space and you don't think about it very much. I just used it. I was getting a fan for my house And every fan I ran into at Amazon says, would you like to see this fan in your space? And I definitely clicked on it, looked at something, looked at it sitting there going, oh, that fan's a lot smaller than I expected. And then went to another one, that fan's a lot bigger than I expected. And I finally figured out which ones I wanted. But what was amazing was it just did what it needed to do and sat down on top of what I needed to figure out. And I think that there's going to be some interesting opportunities there as far as it just responding to those things.
Yeah, see, this is the difficulty that I still have with the Vision Pro. I understand that it is an upscale version and it's a very Apple version, meaning that we're going to do the best we can. We're not going to make a cheap version of this. Especially if if we can only do limited quantities, we're going to make sure that the 203,000 people who see that this is the best we can do in 2024. However, I'm still not seeing, well, why do you need a $3,500 Vision Pro versus it's a 3D molecule in front of you? That's fine. How is that not better than 3 or 4 or 5 of those kids in that classroom with phones or iPads, and they are physically in a space together and they can turn to each other and make comments on, hey, did you see that? Hey, look over here at this. Again, 3D movies, that's something that we've had for quite a while. 3D shopping, this has been, when I hear that, I'm sure that there's going to be money behind that. But I keep thinking of every single ad for every single home computer in the early 80s saying, and dad can balance the checkbook while mom looks up the recipes for tonight's. It's like, okay, you're imagining as a marketing person what you could use this thing for, and you're imagining that that's what people are going to use it for. But that's not going to be what people actually use it for. Apple hasn't pushed. I wish that some company, I'm not just throwing Apple in here wish some company would say something more than 3D gaming, augmented reality, and it won't be that much better than looking at this on an iPad, and it will be affordable for lots and lots of people. I think I have one of those
80s or 90s computer ads.
Hey, it's me, Martin, the kid from next door. Sorry about the rhododendrons. Anywho, Patrick here needs some help with his computer. Hi, Mom. Now, Mr. Nortoncorn, here's the deal. You can get our friend Patrick the help he needs at Tech TV. All you have to do is watch. Ta-da! Tell them what they get, Patrick.
They get Leo and Martin and Patrick and Jessica and
Very
Megan.
good, Patrick. And Mrs. Nortonbean?
That's Nortoncorn, actually.
Whatever. The screensavers are on every weeknight.
Perhaps that's why it's America's favorite computer help show.
Perhaps.
Get the screensavers every weeknight at 7, 6 Central on Tech TV. All the computer help you need, free. No special deals, no CD burner, no legal blah-de-blah.
Ready?
Dude.
Mr. and Mrs. Laporte, it's me, Martin.
Okay.
Dude, you're getting Leo.
I know those of you who are in the club bought ad-free versions, but that one you're going to get. Yeah, do not cut that one out of the show for the club members.
Oh, no.
That's not a real ad. I'm sorry. It just reminded me of, that was a parody of the old Dell ads, remember, with the stoner kid. Selling the Dell computer to his
dude, you're getting a Dell.
You're getting a Dell, dude.
The what Andy said about what's the killer app? Why do we want this? Why do people want this? Honestly, not only is Apple's Apple doesn't get enough credit. One of its greatest assets, and one that it sometimes takes advantage of and exploits, is the fact that it has an enormous developer community, and they're familiar with Apple's developer tools and their frameworks and building apps on Apple's platforms. And it's a huge, huge benefit that Apple has. And when we started talking about this, it's the DK, right? The developer kit, and Apple wanting to get developers into this platform, and Mark Gurman saying, well, are they going to be there? But this is why it's so important for Apple to get those developer kits out there and to get them in the hands of developers that are, to Andy's point, not just any random developer, but developers who do interesting things and know Apple's platforms, because it's entirely possible that the best reason to get a Vision Pro is going to be an app that Apple hasn't thought of, but that one of its developers is going to have they're going to have a little moment, and the light bulb's going to go off, and on day one they're going to have an app that Apple heavily promotes and says, look at this amazing app that a third-party developer wrote. And they don't, because Apple doesn't know the whole picture here, and the developers can be a huge resource for the company if they let them be. And that's why I think that having that developer kit out there is super important for the future of that platform, potentially.
And I'm sure that's why Andy mentioned the Omni Group, because that's one of those kinds of Apple-specific developers. You need a delicious library, right? That was the one that showed
those indie developers. The indie developers don't always ship lots of units. I mean, the good news is they can often make a living without that because it's one or two people, but they often are the trailblazers, right? Like there's a dichotomy in the App Store today too, right? Which is like Apple makes most of its money on in-app purchases and games, right? Like it's not very exciting. It's kind of cruddy at times, right? But it's where they make their money. But what they're proud of, and sometimes it's like the thing that makes them feel good about their platform, is often these things that are coming from the indie developers, and they're very clever and they embrace Apple's technology with their new OS versions in a way that the moneymakers don't. And like both of those are important to Apple. And when you're trying to figure out what a platform is for, they're, I think, especially important.
Well, and I think that one of the things that the irony, of course, was that when Elements 3D came out, which comes back to science, it made me think this is what the next generation of books are going to be like. But the irony, of course, is that it wasn't built with iBooks. It was built with raw code because the iBooks couldn't do what it was out there to do. But it was something that you really felt like, oh, we could step forward one. And the unfortunate thing there was that Apple partnered with Pearson and got a bunch of junk, like that was not inspiring at all. So I do think it's important to find things that get people excited. I think about building tours of really interesting places that you can roam around and see things that you probably won't travel to anytime soon. And I think that those kinds of things, I think you're going to see. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, there's already stereo cameras on the space station. There are Apple's putting stereo cameras in their film productions. I don't think they're shooting the shots with those stereo cameras. I think what they're doing is shooting behind the scenes with them. So imagine being able to sit at a certain, go to certain parts and feel like you were there when it was getting shot. Or MLS, I think, is going to be a big piece of that as well. So I think there's going to be a couple interesting things that are there. And I think there's going to be a lot of developers that think of things that we're not thinking of right now, and that are going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to quickly tie a bow on it, that this is the sort of stuff that kind of worries me. That again, 3D experiences are going to be wonderful, but you can do that already on much cheaper hardware that actually exists for everybody. I'm sure the experience will be much better. I'm sure the experience is going to be much better on Apple's hardware, but we're still talking in terms of here is a viewport through which you observe things in 3D. And so the only thing that was really missing from Apple's presentation was, here is something we figured out that no other developer of 3D hardware has figured out yet, and this is how we've cracked it. The iPhone had, look, we're doing away with almost all tactile interface, give you a full glass interface that can reconfigure itself so that when you don't need that keyboard, it's a huge widescreen iPod. This is, and I realize that this isn't a failing of Vision Pro. This is something that has just simply been deferred until, again, cool developers get their hands on it and find the awesome inside it. But this is the largest thing that concerns me, that Apple and nobody else really has yet to basically say, here is something that is, you need a very, very specific, very, very involved platform in order to deliver this sort of content. It could be, and these are just problems that haven't been solved yet. It might be a display problem. Can you develop this sort of hardware so you can wear it for 3 or 4 hours and not want to just simply scratch at your eyes and throw this like a bat has landed in your hair and throw it across the room? We don't know that yet.
So we've got Disney Plus. They've got 3D stuff, but here's what I'm waiting for: Turner Classic Movies on the Vision Pro. Do you think you could? Do you think you could take Gone with the Wind, Alex, and make it 3D? Kev Brewer says maybe Casablanca in 3D. I'd like to go through the Atlanta burning and have the flames all around me. Can you do that?
Good news, Leo. Machine learning technology will automatically analyze all old films and generate 3D colorized versions that you can just sit there and watch forever.
At 120 frames a second.
Yeah,
exactly.
By the way, that Gone with the Wind is not a fart app. Somebody says in the Discord that's not. It's not. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
That's going to get hard for you to get out of my head now.
Thank you, Mashed Potato, for that image.
Yes. Sorry, but we have a title anyway. So, I think that. While it does many of the same things, it's kind of like saying, well, I don't I don't need to buy a sports car because my car will get there, get to the grocery store.
You're right. That's a good analogy.
It's a different experience, and I'm not I'm not a car guy. I don't have a sports car. I don't have a car that goes very fast. I have a car that I hope works every day because I spend all my money on hardware. I don't spend my money on cars, and so to me, probably I wouldn't spend if I had another, $80,000, I would not go out and go, oh, now I'm going to buy a nice car. I'd be like, I'm going to buy a nice camera, that would be easy for me. So I think for some people, it's not going to make any difference, but I do think that when you put it on, I mean, it's hard to say if you've ever gotten into a really nice car and you drive it, you suddenly realize there's a whole different level of all the things that are made and how they work. And then you go back to your car and you're like, okay, and so I think that is the level of interactivity. So the see-through experience where you're actually seeing what's going on, the interactivity with the scenes around you. It's not just the fact that it can do VR, but that it does this AR process and the ability to pick up your hands, from everybody I think Jason is the only one here that's actually used it, but it seems like it's a pretty seamless experience when you have that on. That's not what's being produced by the other ones right now. That's not the experience that you get with the Quest. It's a pretty immersive experience, and it's not really you're not really seeing through it and not really having those experiences. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it moves forward. But I would, anyway, we'll see.
I'm the guy with the Porsche 911 in the driveway, aka the Meta Quest Pro. And the question is, will I want to buy a Ferrari?
I would say the Meta Quest Pro is more like a MR2.
Yeah, okay. I think you're right.
Not really a Porsche.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So it's nice. So
it's a 914. How about that?
Yeah.
All right, I want to take a little break. We'll come back and talk more about this and all the other 5 topics of the day in just a bit. I have to say, Vision Pro, sure, but I understand the word Twitter is now available. Maybe they could call it the Twitter Pro or the Twitter nerd helmet.
If there is one CEO who would cheap out or not pay attention and let that trademark lapse and get bought out by some porn company, it would be Elon Musk.
You know how many people have the X trademark, including Microsoft?
Yes. A lot of porn companies.
And a lot of porn companies. It's amazing to watch, but it's just a good reminder that the rich are not like you and me. They're stupider. All right.
I have to admit, I know you're about to go to the thing, but I have to say that everything else that has happened to Twitter, I've been like, well, it's my largest following. I'm just going to keep just going on. Yesterday, I registered at Blue Sky.
Yeah. Blue Sky is at this point very Twitter-like.
Yeah.
It's even still blue. And you know what? I think the bird's available.
Yeah. Now,
just check the dumpster behind the CEO
right back
behind the building. Yeah.
Our show today brought to you by a company I'm actually a customer of and love and have for some time. When we wanted to create our own Twit forums at twit.community, I looked at all the different things. And actually, it was John O'Bacon, who is an expert on community. He's written the book on community. He said, don't even think about it. Just get Discourse. Discourse is awesome. The online home for your community, for our community, for over a decade. Discourse. Now, don't confuse it with Discord. I often do, because we also have a Discord. Discourse is the forums-like software. They've made it their mission to make the internet a better place for online communities. They've got all the tools to make your online community home by harnessing the power of discussion. They've got real-time chat. They've even got AI built in. Discourse makes it easy to have meaningful conversations, to collaborate with your community anytime, anywhere. Would you like to create a community? You really need to go to discourse.org/twit. We'll get you 1 month free on any self-service plan. In fact, once I started using Discourse and I kind of went, oh yeah, I recognize Discourse everywhere. Everybody uses Discourse. Now I'm using a particular theme. One of the nice things about Discourse is they have a whole bunch of different themes you can use. But it is just, and I can speak as a moderator, it's incredibly easy to moderate. This is where our fans go to comment on our shows. When we set up Discourse, I was blown away by how easy it was. And of course, I let them manage it. Discourse is open source. That was important to me. Powers more than 20,000 online communities, including Twit.community. Whether you're just starting out or want to take your community to the next level, there's a plan for you. There's the basic plan, which would be great for families. It's a private invite-only community. Or just any community, a business group, a nonprofit. There's a standard plan if you want unlimited members and a public presence. And then, of course, we have the business plan, which is for active customer support communities. You can ask anybody ask Jonathan Bulava. He's a developer advocate at Twitch. He said, this is a great quote, and I agree with it. Discourse is the most amazing thing we've ever used. We have never experienced software so reliable ever. I have run many, many forums in my time, and there has never been one that's easier to use, easier to configure, more powerful, more engaging for your audience, to me, than Discourse. One of the biggest advantages to creating your own community with Discourse is you own your own data. You always have access to all your conversation history. Discourse will never sell your data to advertisers. Discourse, it gives you everything you need in one place for a great discourse. Make Discourse the online home for your community. Discourse.org/twit to get 1 month free on all self-serve plans. That's discourse.org/twit. We are very, very happy Discourse customers. It's a lot less expensive than I thought. It actually costs us less than our Mastodon instance, but we get such great conversation in that. In fact, if you want to try it, see what it's like to be to use Discourse, go right ahead to sign up at twit.community, and I think it's just fantastic. Discourse.org/twit. We thank him so much for supporting MacBreak Weekly. Woohoo! All right, let's, as long as we're talking Mark Bloomberg, let's go to part 2 of his Power On newsletter. Apple races to enter the generative AI wars. He's been talking about Apple GPT. That's what some inside the company call it. It's a large language model. They call the framework AJAX. Mark writes, the LLM project is a cross-company effort spanning software engineering, machine learning, and cloud engineering. They use it internally for employees. It helps them prototype future features, summarize text, and answer questions based on data it's been trained with. What he does say also is that Apple has not decided what they're going to do with it in public. He has some speculation, including Siri, although, neither Google nor Amazon have updated their voice clients with their LLMs, and I think it's because it would be too chatty and boring.
and wrong.
And wrong.
And disturbing.
Yeah, and disturbing. So, they did hire John Giandrea, who is a former Google expert in this area, in AI. Gurman says he aims to be conservative with the technology, although Tim Cook is pushing, he is pushing for broader AI regulation. Okay, So, yeah, I think Apple's probably smart not to have this in public. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. There's too much of a PR hit when things go wrong, and they definitely go wrong. Meanwhile, internally, these AI tools are really, really useful to a large company like Apple, and they certainly are smart enough to know that security-wise they can't trust ChatGPT or any large language model solution that they didn't develop in-house themselves. And thirdly, they have to keep hold of their really, really smartest AI employees. They can't just simply, if this is where all the action is, if this is where all the really interesting research is happening, and Apple says, hey, we think it would be really, really great if you could figure out these eyelashes on this picture are not coming out the way that you'd like. We need a new AI model to get eyelashes better on pictures. So yeah, but I want to be able to summarize Proust and rewrite it and analyze large volumes of information and help people assimilate a crushing inbox of mail that they can't really get their hands on. Those people are going to walk to any of the many, many companies that are paying 10 times top dollar for talent like them. So I would be surprised if they actually had like a chat product, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of years, suddenly recommendations get a lot smarter. Suddenly online, if the option to go to Apple support and explicitly be offered the opportunity to talk to a chatbot that might be able to solve your problem that's been trained only on Apple support questions and Apple support data. I think we'll see like it'll be like the MSG that gets sprinkled all over everything that acts as a flavor enhancer for a lot of different Apple things.
A lot of that, it's already there, right? I mean, Apple has been, the narrative, right, is, Apple isn't doing AI, and the fact is Apple, they built they built the neural engine into their chip. They have been doing 60 million scans of every photo in your photo library for like 7 years now. Like, they have machine learning AI technology. The thing is, the chatbot thing, and they didn't have that. What bothers me about Gurman's report is he says they started working on this chatbot late last year, which reads to me very much like somebody went, hey, do we have a chatbot? They're really hot right now. And everybody looked at each other and they're like, no. And maybe John G. and Andrea was like, no, they're stupid. I told them not to do it. And then Tim Cook was like, maybe try a little bit. And so you end up in this situation where that feels really late to the party and makes me wonder, like, one, what are they doing about Siri? Like, was a language model? Like, you use a language model for autocorrect in iOS 17, but where's Siri and what is Siri doing? And then the other troubling thing, the most troubling thing in this entire report, is the fact that Mark Gurman says, okay, they don't have a strategy. They don't have a consumer angle. They don't have a concrete plan. But you know what they apparently have is a ship date, because they want to ship something next year. It's like, what? What are you shipping? What are you shipping next year at all? And that's where bad things happen, right? Where they don't really know what the product is. They just know they need to ship something because peer pressure, I guess. They don't want to feel like they've been left behind. And like, I think Apple being restrained about some of this stuff and saying, the current large language models are really embarrassing and don't really serve the user's purpose yet. And we're going to wait, and we're going to do our typical Apple thing where everybody thinks we're late, but it turns out we're just waiting for the right moment. Like, okay, but when I hear that they don't have a plan, but they have a ship date, it's scary, because like that's how disasters happen in this industry is you ship something because you have to and not because you have an idea.
Very good point. Is
that a ship date to the public or a ship date internally?
Well, I mean, they haven't said anything publicly, but Gurman's report says they plan to announce something next year, but they don't have a plan.
Okay.
It's like,
it's got to be hard
to announce something.
I was reading.
Okay.
It's got to be hard if you're sitting on this technology, you've got it, that people inside, I think quite rightly, including experts like John G. and Andrea, say, no, guys, this is not something we ever want to put our name on. But there's got to be a lot of pressure. Well, but Google's doing it, Facebook's doing it, and Apple and Microsoft's doing it. We're missing the bus,
Right.
You don't want to miss the bus, even if the bus is headed to hell.
And the danger is he being a naysayer, or is he being really smart? And I think the danger is that it's possible that he's absolutely right. Assuming John G. and Andrea is the guy who's saying no, if it's possible he's exactly right, it's also possible that he just looks down on that technology and says, oh, no, we don't like that.
We could do better.
And you risk missing something important, which brings us back to Siri, which is like, okay, Apple, maybe this isn't the right thing, except everybody's looking over at Siri saying it seems like maybe Siri could be better, and it isn't, so what you gonna do? And I get being enough of an adult to say, we're not ready, so let's not talk about it. And that's a very Apple thing to do. But it does, when the chatbot came up late last year, I wonder, or were they just saying we're just not going to bother with that, and are they going to regret that later?
It is likely that it's Gianandrea, because he's senior vice president of machine learning and AI strategy, right? So, I mean, that's his job, is to decide what their AI strategy is. Go ahead, Alex.
I was going to say, and Apple missed the boat on subscriptions for a very long time. They just were like, they're going to keep on having us buy music. And, the good news for them is they don't have a controlling interest in that market because of that. Because if they had switched over very quick, 10 years earlier than they did, they probably, would have 80% of the market, that's out there. And so.
So you're lobbying for them to release something.
I don't think that they should rush at it. I think but I think that there's something. I mean, I use ChatGPT every day, so I'm kind of
and Midjourney. You're a big fan of these,
I use both of them extensively, and so I feel like it's kind of hard for me to imagine how I do what I do before I had those two things, and like I use them so much every day that it's hard for me to because I'm constantly going back and forth. Like if I'm trying to figure something out, I'll ask ChatGPT that question, and then I start Googling. But what it does is it gets me through that conversation. Like I can't think of the words to use to search for what I'm looking for, or even how to think about it. So I just ask ChatGPT like I'm asking some person, and then I'll say, "You are this, and I am this. Explain this to me." And then it just goes, and I go, "Oh, I got it." And then I start searching, and then I cross-check it, and I often find that again, the internet's not much more accurate than ChatGPT, because that's what it was based on. So you have to kind of read and recalibrate between each page to figure out what's actually accurate. But it gives you a good sense of it.
But Apple could be missing the boat, because this is just like VR. This is still in infancy. So most of the moves made are stepping on rakes. It's not. There's a lot of stumbling features. Slowly, I think that a lot of the industry and a lot of the users are starting to realize that although just asking a generalized chatbot that's been trained on all the racism of the internet and all the idiocy of the internet is not quite so useful. Once you have a tool that says, I'm going to ask you a question, I only want you to answer it based on information you get from this trusted source or these 3 trusted sources, or here is the corpus of all of the technical documentation that we have written in this company over the past 11 years. Only give me answers and text that's based on this source and this trusted source only. That is a real power move. Just the ability to say, learn my inbox, learn nothing but my inbox, and then answer. Let me ask you questions based on it. So I don't think they necessarily have to. I also think that Apple's in a little bit of difficulty because philosophically they're going to want to do that all on device for privacy and security reasons. And that's kind of a challenge. You really have to be selective in the features that you're going to be creating if you're only going to be doing it locally on a computer, let alone a phone. But it's, again, people don't know the MSG is in there, but once you give them a choice of 2 different dishes, one of them has a flavor enhancer, the other one does not, they're going to lean towards the one with the flavor enhancer, maybe.
And the hard part is that I guess I would say that the Midjourney and Photoshop the Photoshop beta are a good example of a limited library versus an unlimited library. Right. We'll see where all the lawsuits go, but like the Photoshop paint in and what it'll create and everything else is really cool, and it's really fun to use, and it's 1/10 the quality of Midjourney. It's not anywhere near what Midjourney's doing, and so because it's limited to what Adobe owns or what it's licensed. And so I think that that's always the problem with limiting the library that it's based on, is that you're limiting the output. And so I think that that's going to be the challenge for Apple, is they definitely don't want to just give you this unlimited thing, but is it really going to work? But and I think that they could, through licensing, through a lot of things, if it just went through all the encyclopedias and all of the things that Apple can afford to pay for, to Andy's point, Apple could build all trusted sources. And then I'm asking questions, but I do it now with my phone. I'm on ChatGPT on my phone, and I'll ask it things, and while I'm somewhere, and I do want to just be able to say, hey, whatever, what is this, or what am I looking at, or what is the, like if I point at a plant, what is that, and where does it grow, and what does it do, and have it just answer the questions would be really powerful. You'll learn a lot faster.
Just when I was cooking a couple days ago, and I thought that I think some paprika would work really, really well in this dish, and I would have given anything for at that point to simply ask the smart speaker in my kitchen, hey Shlomo, like if I'm using paprika, should I add it at the beginning of a 30-minute simmer, or just or spice it at the end? And for it to find that information and get it back to me, that would be quite wonderful. I
would just like to ask you where the hell my paprika is.
Is Domino's still open?
Yeah, exactly.
This is an interesting challenge for Apple, because the Apple playbook, of course, as it was with the iPod, the iPhone, everything they've done, even the Vision Pro, is to let the market simmer with early products until it becomes clear what directions to take and where Apple can add value, and then release a product later in the life cycle. The problem with AI, though, is not any one thing. I really like your idea of taking Encyclopedia Britannica and the World Book and a bunch of vetted quality sources, just ingesting them. Apple could make the next Wikipedia, couldn't it? It could, but reliable, right? And not prone to the political fights and so forth that Wikipedia is prone to. But it could be very interesting.
I would say in a real-time data sort of way, Wikipedia oftentimes is more accurate than most of the other things.
That's the challenge, right? So how would you could take in all the existing vetted material, but how do you keep it up to date? Is a really interesting.
I would say that I would give the Wikimedia or whether the foundation a ton more money.
Yeah,
which Apple could afford to do. Like just give them $1 billion.
I give them as much as I can afford every month. But
Apple doesn't need to create a fact source of its own, right? Like Apple needs to pay for some sources and use those as data sources.
Yeah, I think
that is the future for Wikipedia, actually. And I think it's the future for other data sources like encyclopedias and news organizations, right? You pay the AP or Reuters or whoever for access, not to republish. I mean, they do some of that with Apple News, but to use it as their corpus of current events for their search engine, and even link out and say, if you want to read more, go here. And that's a pretty good model, right? As a trust database for this kind of search.
Andy, how much would you pay for a cookbook LLM that had ingested the top 5,000 cookbooks in the world, and so knew everything there is to know about paprika? I would pay a lot for that. Especially if it was a nice recipe take paprika, add.
I would be happy with just the LLM pointed at the modernist cookbook. That's like I think I have all of those, and there's like 12 there you go, volumes of it. Just pointed all of that.
Those are the opportunities. They're niche opportunities. They're not like Siri. They're niche opportunities. Although, boy, I'd love to see Siri have these additional skills added in. That would be very interesting. So in other words, there are places Apple could use this without the risks of the internet trained LLMs like ChatGPT.
Yeah. That's why I wouldn't be shocked if they did release this as a consumer-facing thing. I wouldn't be surprised if it was something like Siri, where
they're going to focus on safety, aren't they?
Yeah. No. I meant in the sense that it is a sticker that they put on a whole bunch of different things that indicate, hey, this is an active voice agent. So they basically say, hey, now Apple Mail is now enhanced with Schmengy brain, I don't know, whatever. And now, hey, now when you have your, if you have an outline for your presentation, but you don't have you need a slide deck immediately, hey, Schmengy brain, go to the Schmengy brain feature inside Keynote, and it will create a slide deck based on this outline. It will generate artwork that's appropriate to each. It will fill out the text.
And it'll be called Siri.
I would love to. Now I'm starting to think of apps.
Siri 2.0.
I would love to see, what if Apple ingested IMDb and every movie ever made, and then gave you a Vision Pro app that you could say, hey, I remember Humphrey Bogart in front of a plane saying goodbye to Ingrid Bergman. What was that scene? And then it pulled it up.
We have that technology already. It's called watching any movie with your mom.
Yeah, I was going to say, and then it calls the 911 and says, I think Leo hit his head because he doesn't remember Casablanca anymore.
Was that guy in that movie with that lady? She used to be on that TV show. She used to drink coffee.
You can do that with music now, by the way. You can go, what's the song? Da 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 ba ba da 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 da, and sometimes they'll get it right. So.
Oh, Google search will even do, I forget which app it is. I think it's a Google search thing where you can say the album where it's a pool and there's a baby and and it's underwater, and they'll say playing, never mind.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's so cool. There's the real uses. They're in constrained data sources, so you don't have the hallucination, you don't have the misinformation, and
intelligent assistant is what we want, right? Which is what Siri was always supposed to be. Intelligent assistant. I don't know how to get this thing, but you're an expert in that, and then you use the large language model just to talk back and forth, so it's like I'm talking to somebody who understands me. But it's not confabulating like an invented album that didn't ever exist. It's going to the source. It knows how to search that. It knows how to summarize that. That's the dream, and I hope they are working on that at Apple. And it may just be that with what they've said is like chatbot is the wrong way to think about
yes.
LLM chatbot is not the right way to think about that.
It's a toy.
And yeah, exactly. But I also understand why they would be feeling the pressure to announce something because, they don't want to feel like they're behind, but it's also not.
Well, they could do what Google does, announce it and never release it. That's always, that lets off some
Apple.
of the pressure.
They don't do that.
Yeah. Google has announced, remember they had glasses that would translate as you're talking to somebody in another language, and they never did that. They just talked about it.
They bought a very promising augmented reality eyeglass company that made a very nice pair of eyeglasses you could buy actually at an eyeglass store. That would be just a simple one-way communication between your phone and this thing, getting notification stuff, and it was lovely. But Google bought it and used the company to make this demo, and then said, hope you enjoyed your free cats during orientation, team members.
Bye.
We're cutting you loose.
Keep that beanie. You may need it again. All right, let's take a little break. I think we have some more Apple news. I'll find some. I really will, I promise. But first, a word from our sponsor, my daily beverage that is such a great way to start the day, AG1. The daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health. Like you, I'm sure, I wanted to support my health. I already had a fistful of pills. Didn't want to drink. Some of those things that I've tried are just god-awful. Through a science-driven formulation of vitamins, probiotics, and whole food-sourced nutrients, AG1 delivers comprehensive support in one drink for the brain, the gut, and the immune system. It's like my favorite beverage. I look forward to it every morning. Since 2010, AG1 has improved their formula 52 times. They are in constant pursuit of perfecting the best foundational nutrition supplement possible. High-quality ingredients, absolutely rigorous standards. AG1 has become a part of millions of daily routines. AG1 saves you time, they save you confusion, and yes, they save you money. Each serving less than $3 a day when you subscribe. And they make it really easy. Just one scoop of AG1 in 12 ounces. AG1 makes it easier for you to drink the highest quality supplements. And whatever your goal, improving your digestion, supporting your sleep, AG1 is the best bang for your buck. One scoop. AG1 is a simple, drinkable daily habit. So if you're looking to take ownership of your health with a simple, effective investment. Oh, by the way, I love the travel pouches. Makes it so easy to go on the road. Just throw one per day into my suitcase and I'm done. Start your day every day with AG1. Try AG1. You can get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs. You're going to love them with your first purchase of a subscription. Go to drinkag1.com/MacBreak. drinkag1.com/MacBreak. Check it out. AG1. drinkag1.com/MacBreak. There is some negative news. Apple is being targeted. It's so funny because Apple can't win. On the one hand, Apple is constantly, beat up for privacy. On the other hand, now the EU is investigating ATT, application, application transparency.
Ad tracking
transparency. Because it hurts the little small businesses. It's like, we're just trying to protect your privacy. This does seem like conflicting news from the EU. The French antitrust watchdog, which is Le Chien qui voit, issues the statement of objection over Apple app tracking yesterday, or actually this was today, citing concerns Apple could have breached regulations linked to the use of iPhone user data for advertising purposes. Wait a minute, what? This is the switch you flip that says they can't track you. The watchdog is concerned that Apple, quote, might abuse its dominant position by implementing discriminatory, non-objective, and non-transparent conditions for the use of user data for advertising purposes. Nice. Apple denies the allegation. Well, I guess what you could say, they don't say this, but what you could say is, well, notice there's no ATT for Apple, that there is for third-party apps. So you could say that. Apple says it denied the allegation, saying the mechanism gives users more control by requiring all apps to ask permission before tracking them. And we're going to engage constructively with the French regulator. Hey, buddy. Where did this come from? 4 French online advertising groups filed an antitrust complaint in 2020 over ATT. And I guess, it's inevitable. IAB France, MMAF, SRI, and Unicom said the changes brought by Apple did not meet European Union privacy rules because while the opt-in mechanism applied for third-party developers, Apple's own apps did not include it. So they got a point.
It's not third-party.
Right.
Because it's not third-party.
Right. It's Apple. And Apple has first-party data regardless, right?
Yeah, GDPR is becoming such a problem for so many people because it's basically if you don't think you have a weapon to hit a big company with, pull out GDPR, you'll have some success because it's vague enough that it'll probably go to trial. It'll probably cause some sort of a problem. I do support the principle of it. I do support the idea of it, but in practice over the past few years, we've seen that the balance of holding large companies to account for violating user privacy is happening at a slightly smaller pace than a lot of companies that are doing their best being really, really harassed and almost put out of business by the impossibility of complying with certain terms of this thing. I hope that gets updated a little bit just to make it a more finely focused tool.
On the other hand, Apple is being targeted in App Store antitrust damages suit. UK developers seeking $1 billion plus. It's a class action lawsuit which seeks compensation, accusing the tech giant of abusing a dominant position by charging an anti-competitive, we've heard this all before, 30% fee on in-app sales. This is the one thing that Epic kind of won in their battle. Actually, Epic didn't even win this battle. They only won the one thing, and Apple's got a 90-day stay on it, that Apple doesn't allow you to put a link to your third-party payment system on the web for apps like Kindle or Audible.
It does show that this is how Apple gets pecked to death by ducks. Not to death, of course, but this is the one thing where you kind of got us here. We're at least going to have to spend a lot of money to make this go away one way or another. And this class action suit would not have been brought if not for the fact that it's been identified as a successful point of entry to get at Apple's wallet.
Yeah,
and it's still going to come down to the same thing it's come down to in every other case, which is, are other phones like the Apple phone? Are they, and if a court decides that they are the same, that most of these phones work the same way, then it's hard to calculate a monopoly. If they decide that it is distinct, then it's easy to calculate a monopoly. So it's just a matter of, so far, no one's been successful at making that turn yet.
I wonder if in this class action suit, the courts might say, well, the EU regulators are already looking at this, so we're just going to, let's wait and see what they do first. Right. Otherwise, the ducks can really get you.
It's nibbled to annoyance by ducks, I guess, is what Andy really meant.
Yeah. Not death, just annoyance. Yeah.
Annoyance.
Yeah.
If it puts pressure on Apple to consider what I always term as not evil motivations, but dogmatic things that they put into place at the very, very start of the App Store that have long since outlived their usefulness and their sanity in an app store, that's a good thing. I hope that that's what happens. I don't hope that Apple keeps having to write $1 billion checks. I don't think they're going to write $1 billion check here, but just as that kind of pressure is the reason why a lot of the developers who aren't making, actually 85% of developers, as Apple says, don't pay any fees whatsoever because they're not making enough money to actually start being charged the tariff, so to speak. And that didn't happen on its own. That had happened because of pressure from outside.
You're saying eventually
really
King Farquhar will look out of the tower and see all the pitchforks and torches and say, I don't think they like this policy.
It's also very hard to find a bank that will cash $1 billion check.
Well, you got to make it one of those, those big prize checks, the demo.
It's the oversized novelty check. Novelty the only check. Kind of check. And then you got to endorse it, you need like one of those wide Sharpies so you can write your name really big.
Did you see? Did you see there was a woman claimed to have won whatever it was, the $1 billion Powerball payoff, and they gave her the big novelty check, and then it turned out no, she hadn't. You could have just checked her ticket and see, but no,
she got her 15 minutes of fame.
They got she wanted the big novelty check, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
That cost that lottery company $187 at Kinko's. I hope that they get some of that money back from her.
I love reading that article, or I think the TechCrunch article on the UK thing. It said another element that is critical and is that even if the fee was zero, they would still have the same app store because Apple could not sell a single device without valuable apps such as Tinder, Spotify, Netflix, news apps, game apps, and the like. I was like Fortnite, like users were just kind of like, oh, Fortnite's not here anymore. Okay.
Right.
I just think that it was like the thought that people aren't going to buy their iPhones because of those apps specifically. I was kind of like, well, I think most Apple users would just move on. Like they'd just be like, oh, I guess it's not here anymore. So you'd have to take them all out to make that possible. But Fortnite, I thought was an amazingly illustrative thing of the leverage that an individual app has, because it was like I had a whole bunch of friends that were playing Fortnite and then they just weren't.
Then they stopped.
And they were like, oh, it's gone now. So I will now do something else. It wasn't like I'm now going to go to an Android. Like that wasn't one of the options. So
Apple is a little upset about a proposed UK surveillance bill. The government in the UK seeking to update the Investigatory Powers Act of 2016. It wants messaging services to go to the Home Office and make sure the security features meet their needs. In other words, the Home Office could say, turn off those security features without telling anybody. Yeah. Apple says, over our dead bodies.
And everybody else. I mean, like everybody else that's connected to messages are just like, well, we're going to have to turn it off. Like, we're just going to have to turn it off.
Yeah.
They're under this proposed rule that Apple and others would be required to do what Apple was proposing to do a couple of years ago, which is to scan content on the phone for CSAM, child sexual abuse material on the device before it goes into a messaging service, which means that they would have to break all encryption, which is that's not going to happen.
And as you say, WhatsApp and Signal both have also said, we're just going to leave the UK if you make us do that.
Hope your citizens enjoy email. That's all you're going to be using to talk to each other with.
Well, and I mean, come on, the politicians here, right? They want to look tough. Yes, you want to. First off, they bring the most egregious examples to the table. So they say this is about saving the kids and it's about stopping terrorism. But it's also about providing the government with access to whatever they want to see. Right. And that's where it always goes, because that's ultimately what governments want. At the same time, the politicians who make the laws that let the government operate don't want to be the ones who make their constituents angry because they broke their phone and they broke their messaging app and all of those things. So it feels like the most likely scenario here is that there's already carve-outs in there for Zoom. And my favorite is for government people. The government stuff can still be encrypted. If you work at the government, that stuff still be encrypted. It's fine. It's the people, regular people who don't get encrypted. So there'll be carve-outs. I would imagine they don't want Apple and WhatsApp and anybody else to storm out of the UK and stay out, right? They're going to more likely they'll have a little they agreed to this minor thing that doesn't break anything, and that's how we got them to stay, because it would be quite a scene, and it would be interesting to see it if it happened. But that, not only would that make the UK politicians, I think, maybe look bad and be a little afraid, but they also have to realize that Apple and WhatsApp and the rest of these guys aren't going to say yes, because they know the moment they say yes, okay, in the UK we'll do that. Well, the jig is up everywhere else. Literally everywhere else will pass similar laws at that point. So they're not going to say yes. They're going to say no. So if you're a UK politician, do you want them to storm out of your country? Probably not.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But it's real interesting because they're right on the verge here.
It just undermines our belief in the competency of our leaders. Like it's just the dumbest law. Like and this is why a lot of times when politicians say they want to make a law about something, you go, well, like, they're just, these are technological infants, that are trying to make laws about things that they just don't know anything about. And they're being told that they're being given a pile of things to think about from the intelligence community. So the intelligence community is pushing this, and they're talking to people who barely know how to use email about why it's important that they have access to this data. And so they're like, "Oh, okay," this seems reasonable to me. And it's just, and we see this in all the countries, especially the Five Eyes. Like those are the five countries that you see the most action outside of Russia and China, which kind of have their own little world. Is the Australia, New Zealand, Canada, United States, and UK.
The Apple says, one, we're not going to make changes to security features specifically for one country that would weaken the product for all users. Two, some changes will require issuing a software update, so we can't even do it secretly. Three, these proposals constitute a serious and direct threat to data security and information privacy that would affect people outside the UK. To which the Home Office said, we keep all legislation under review to ensure it is as strong as it can be, and this consultation is part of that process. No decisions have been made yet. No, not at all. So I think once people sat up and took notice to the Snoopers Charter, as it's called, and the modifications to the Snoopers Charter, that maybe the Home Office will walk that back. Whoops. Didn't mean to offend you, Governor. Actually, a little threat to Apple in Apple Pay, a threat to Venmo and its Cash app and so forth. The Federal Reserve Bank has launched its own instant payments service. It's called FedNow, and it's free, although the banks that implement it may end up charging you some money. FedNow is launching with 41 banks and 15 service providers. Venmo, at least, doesn't charge you anything unless you want the money deposited directly into your account, because they make a little money holding your cash for you. Let me hold that for you. I presume Apple does the same thing. FedNow is apparently just the U.S. example of a service that's widely available everywhere else in the world. Canada's got it, something similar. France has it, something similar. Because here in the United States, we have the Federal Clearinghouse that you write a check, you buy a stamp, put it on an envelope, you mail it. The check goes to the bank, which then passes it on the Federal Clearinghouse, where some guy with a green shade and garters goes, well, that looks okay. All right. And 3 days later, the money's deposited in your plumber's account. That is kind of an old-fashioned way of doing things, I guess.
Yeah, and countries like Japan have had this since like the early 70s. It is bank infrastructure. It's not as though this goes live in a week or so that suddenly you'll be able to essentially PayPal between any two entities in the entire world without using PayPal and without using any fees. It's basically so banks can talk to other banks, including international banks that have something similar to this. But it's a long time coming, and it's a good base upon which a lot of future services can be created. I was reading about this last week, and apparently this is part of when crypto started to become a thing a long time ago. The Fed started having conversations about how, well, should we have a federal cryptocurrency? Is digital currency where things are going? And this was one of the outcomes of those discussions, saying that it's not necessarily that we need a form of digital currency. We just need to the process of making the numbers in one person's account affect the numbers in other people's accounts simultaneously. We need to make that easier and simpler, and make that into something
and faster,
into a network that we can create. Right? Yeah. Exactly. just today, I paid somebody a fee with the simplest and most technologically advanced method that was available to me. I picked up my phone, launched my banking app, and told my banking app to please print out a paper check and mail it to this person in this amount.
Yes.
And it tells me that, okay, this will be mailed out on this date. We will hold the funds on this date. Like, I'm glad I no longer have to do the 10 steps of where's the checkbook. Okay, let's write it out. Okay,
but the point is they're still mailing a check, even though
exactly. So
this is
the
all
ability to simply say, Yeah. Whereas the conversation started with, do you have PayPal, Venmo, or do you need a check? Now, with the system in place, it would simply be whatever token you need to show to say, here is how to put money into my account securely so that I can't steal from you and you can't steal from me.
I have noticed that more and more places are using Venmo. I can they'll show a QR code. I hold up my Venmo app and the payment goes through that way. So I think more people want to do this. You have to say though, this is the Fed joining the 21st century. Look at this banner that they got designed somewhere that really looks like 1945. Fed Now, it's a big billboard over a building that says Fed Now is live. And then there's another building with showcase. And they got it's like a movie opening in 1943. It's
a pretty savvy site. That's HTML 1.4. They're using tables.
This is hysterical. You got it. This is what they're going to have the guys with the green shades and the slave guarders do, is design their graphics from now on, I guess. Anyway, Fed Now service is live. Ask your bank. A lot of big banks are already signatories. I see Wells Fargo, for instance, is in the network. A lot of community banks, Mellon, J.P. Morgan Chase. And the question is, well, what are they going to charge you for this? And they remember, a lot of these banks also have Zelle, which they created to do this.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
There are a lot of questions about this. Like you said, they've already created their own services. Do they want to switch users over to a competing service that they don't have their thumb into? And also things like, how much are they going to lose when I make a transfer from one person, during the week that paper check or electronic to paper check is in transit, that money is frozen inside my account and they can still use it for banking purposes. How is it going to affect their bottom line when all those transactions happening a million times a day are instantaneous from party to party? People are no longer parking money inside a bank account for as long as they used to. What's going to happen if I get the slightest twitch that something's up at my bank, or if I just get nervous about the economy, I can take $500,000 out of an account and move it instantly, as opposed to this is going to take a day or two in order for the bank to actually maneuver it. There's a lot. I'm sure they anticipated a lot of this, but we're going to see a lot of interesting things happening in the next couple years. And
Apple could actually become a Fed Now provider. They could actually, in fact, I would imagine they'd want to use this. I don't know.
I don't know enough about it to know if they could, if it's just what kind of an institution qualifies for access to this network.
The certified service providers include, people like Jack Henry and Finsley Open Payment Network. So I feel like that there would be a place for Apple to play in this. I don't know what it gets you. I guess in order to use Apple Pay, you have to have, the other person has to have Apple.
There's just this idea of a middleman that's a pain point for security. Right. It's a pain point for privacy. And again, that conversation: do you have PayPal? Do you have Zelle? Do you have do you have Venmo? Yeah. Oh no, and that's the reason why I'm sending them a check, because they understand a check is not like cash, but it's like cash in that I put it in your hand and you have the money. Again, after another 3 or 4 days of deposits.
I haven't written a check in so long.
Yeah,
ages and ages.
I had to write one. I had to write one last year, and I was like, "How do I do this again?" Like it was literally like I was like, "What am I?"
My hand is a claw. I don't even know how to write anymore. Yes, my hand is like.
I filled out one form for the doctor, and I felt like I could barely move my hand. Like all those muscles don't do that anymore. No. And I'm just like, what am I like? What is going on here?
Yeah,
the whole concept has totally ruined when I go to Comic-Cons and stuff. I used to be able to say, oh gosh, I'm out of money. If I really love that sketchbook, I certainly would buy it for $80. But as soon as I see an ATM, I'm going to go find an ATM and then come right back. I'll be right back. And now they say, oh, I do take PayPal and Zelle. And oh, damn it. Now I have to say, actually, I think that your artwork is still on the uphill side of the fence. I don't think that I really want to see your naked women doing improbable things with no anatomy that I've ever heard of before. But I wish you the best in your future endeavors.
Trouble in paradise, according to Wayne Mott, The Information. He's well connected. Apple is struggling with manufacturing larger screens for the iPhone 15 Pros. Two people with direct knowledge of the issue say this could lead to a shortage of units at launch in September. We're starting to hear a little bit about this now because here we are in July and it's just a couple of months off. How big are these going to be?
It may not be that they're that much bigger. I think it's that they're reducing the bezel size again. They really want to get rid of the bezel, and I think that they're making it smaller and trying to have it not change the form factor, but have a bigger screen. And Apple does a lot of things that are hard. So that's part of what makes the phone is that they do assembly processes that are very difficult. I remember hearing a story that they had to basically when they first made the trackpads that had pushback on them, that those trackpads, like 40% of them didn't make it, didn't make QC,
right?
And that was like for millions of them as they went out until they got it sorted out. So oftentimes at the very beginning, because they're doing things that are hard, it oftentimes is difficult. And we've seen these delays before because of that.
iPhone 12 had a similar delay, probably because of COVID.
Also, sounds like there's an LG screen that they're trying to use here, and there's a process there, and they're failing more. But that the information report says that they've made it so that if they have to, they can use a Samsung display instead, right? Yeah. So there's the aspect of this, which is just like, look, they would rather not pay Samsung. Of course they would. But which would they prefer, shipping iPhones with Samsung displays or not shipping iPhones? And the answer is shipping iPhones with Samsung displays. So it's interesting. This seems like a growing pains kind of thing where they really want to use this LG display, but which uses this new process.
Low injection pressure overmolding or lipo.
They're lipoing your iPhone.
Yeah.
But if your iPhone doesn't want to be lipoed, they'll put a Samsung display, and they just, because in the end, priorities, right? They want to move on, but if they can't ship iPhones, the jig is up, so they'll ship iPhones.
Kind of in this, and it's interesting insight into the process. iPhones are now in a manufacturing stage, Wayne Ma writes, known as risk ramp, in which Foxconn makes hundreds of thousands of units of the device to test how reliably they can build it without defects. Apple traditionally moves to mass production in August, of course, shipping to customers late September. So we're in risk ramp mode right now, and that's where this news comes from.
Our friend Scooter X in the Discord points out a 9to5Mac story that says, it sounds like there's a story like the next step after the information story, which was like they're working on it, is like this other report is they worked on it. And
this is from Zach Hall at 9to5Mac. iPhone 15 Pro production concerns over thinner bezels may be exaggerated.
Well, it's this update from display supply chain consultants, right? Yeah. Saying that they solved the problem, that this was an issue, but maybe they've resolved it. And,
interesting.
Obviously, there is no higher priority at Apple than making sure the iPhone ships in volume on time, right? That's number one. Job number 1 and 2 and 3 is make the iPhone be fine, right? That's it.
And there was another report last week about how Apple's basically talking to Samsung and LG to say, we need you to develop a truly bezel-less display for us. We don't want the display to curve around the sides like we see in other phones, and we want to maybe be able to do that in 2017. Yes,
is there a Tiffany band warming up behind you?
That's just bikers with my Tuesday afternoon meth delivery.
I thought it was a taiko drummers getting ready for the big parade. I only start worrying once there's gunshots. Then I know that I really have to answer the door. Are you in a biker area? Is that?
No, I'm in a very, very picturesque, touristy New England seaside quaint village where a lot of people try to take a diversion through our quaint village because that way they will avoid a red light on North Main Street.
So wouldn't want to see it. Wouldn't want a red light.
So people are out on their entertainment vehicles. People are out on the vehicular version of their Vision Pro displays because it's such a nice, and they don't realize that there are we have boutique eyewear shops, we have antique shops, we have chocolate shops, but one floor above those things are actual hardworking Americans who are just trying to make a living in a very
What kind of shop do you live above, or is that secret?
I'll tell you that where I used to live, across the street used to be a hip hop dance studio. And so like every week, 2 nights a week from like 6 to 9, there'd just be boom, 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 boom. And I used to use that kind of like to, as soon as the music would come on, I'd know that, oh, good, it's time for dinner.
Time for dinner and exercise. So what do we care? What do we know about the iPhone 15? Will it have a USB-C port?
Oof.
Yes.
This year next.
Yes.
That's the rumor.
You think so, Jason?
Yes.
You think it's a yes?
Yeah. Now
it's time.
Now's the time.
It's time. Mm-hmm. And I guess that means you have to update the AirPods because they're the last thing. The AirPods and my Apple TV remote are the last thing that use Lightning. And we'll have to get updates on those. I've heard it's going to look pretty much the same, right? Maybe a little more rounded, but not a significant difference. And then there's rumors that the camera will be even better.
Our customers love the phone camera. The iPhone camera is the most popular phone in the world, and we're happy to announce we've made it even better. It's one of the most interesting things to look at for the next couple of years is what they do to the physical form and design of the phone, because one of the things they're still working on is they want to put the cameras and all the kind of stuff under display, and to do that they're going to have to maintain like square edges. That's one of the reasons why they want that edge-to-edge display, because they want to lose all the bezels and just basically make this a total glass surface. So we might see, if we see like what seems like a trivial redesign to what the case looks like, it could be in advance of a larger redesign that again is adapting for a display technology that they anticipate they're going to be switching to in the iPhone 16 or 17, and the ability to put Face ID underneath the actual display itself instead of having to have a forehead.
Will there be an iPhone 14 Pro Ultra? The Pro Max, Pro Ultra? I'd buy it. You'd buy it.
Yeah.
Andy wouldn't, but everybody else would, right?
Yeah,
Well, with the phone, it's different because you can put the phone in a really cool-looking, tough, rugged case, and you'll have ultravized your phone very, very nicely,
and no one will know. Yeah.
Well, and whereas the Ultra watch was a solution that you couldn't get without having really designing it as an Ultra watch from the beginning, but also it was a way to have a different style watch to expand the line that was kind of looking kind of boring. Yeah, I really like those things.
What do you think, Jason? That's a rumor that there'll be a third iPhone Pro model, the Ultra.
Yeah, good old Mark G. Bloomberg said, I'm not sure it's this year.
He was one of our best mayors. I'm telling you.
There's the question of whether you go up to, an iPhone Ultra. What is the year? What is the feature that makes that? Does it really replace the Pro Max and just be kind of like the super big, like the Apple Watch? You could argue that's just a marketing question, what they call the big Pro phone. And so they could do that at any point if they feel like they could. The rumor is that the largest Pro phone is going to have a camera that's like super awesome with a periscope lens and all of that. And if that's the case, and it's really strongly differentiated from the other Pro model, calling it Ultra instead of Pro Max. I mean, Pro Max, for those who don't remember before there was Pro Max, Pro Max is a dumb name. It sounds like a medication for older gentlemen, and so I would go with Ultra on your Flow Maxes of the world. That's where I was going there. So
you think they drop Max and call it Ultra? Because don't they have M2? I mean, they have M2 Pro and M2 Pro Max and M2 Pro Ultra.
Well, those are just chips, but they don't have M2 Pro Max. They have M2 Pro and M2 Max. And Pro Max Ultra is only available on the high-end iPhone. So, if they took that name, that name away, and just called it Ultra, like the Apple Watch, it feels like a better name to me. But the thing is, it needs to be differentiated, right?
But
if
the reason
just
they
a bigger
say
Pro, why bother?
They have Pro and non-Pro models, and then within the Pro model, they have regular and Max.
And within both models, right? We have regular and Max in both models.
Oh, we do. Okay, yeah.
So but iPhone 17 Max, iPhone 17 Pro Max, you could do it, but you could also say, well, it's Ultra. This time it's Ultra. It just, again, if it was identical specs to the Pro, just a bigger screen, it's not an Ultra, right? So you really want to make it a big deal. But if it's got by far the best camera ever on an iPhone before, and it's only in that model, why not call it Ultra? Like, go ahead, because you've got some way to differentiate.
Also, they know that Apple consumers, there's a tier of Apple consumers that will spend whatever they
give me the best
to get the best. Particularly if it's like, hey, I do a lot of photography, or I'm a creator and I shoot a lot of video. I've been happy with what I've got on last year's best model, but oh my God, this one takes it into an entire separate tier. Or even people who just want, just like with the Watch Ultra, I want a phone that absolutely does not look like the cheap version of the phone from 2 years ago. I want the version of the phone that everybody knows costs $1,500 and just came out a month or two ago. And that's not, in the Apple market, that's not particularly crass. There are people who have that kind of money and they want that kind of new styling. It's a fashion thing.
I think the loaded phone is $2,000 now. Like it's, like with
a terabyte too.
Yeah, the whole thing. With the headset coming out, the 3D capability, even without changing the lens configurations, you could probably do a 3D version in an Ultra. And that would be for anybody who wants to generate content that they'd want to watch on the headset. I think that's going to happen either this year or next year. It might not be until next year, but I think having, arming 70 million phones with the ability to generate 3D content for the headsets is not a bad idea.
Kind of makes sense. It's, for a long time when you went, as we first went over $1,000 in a phone, people went, oh my God, but this has become our primary computer for almost
I was just going to say that it's the primary computer for me. I mean, that's what I spend more time on my phone than any other computing device.
Yeah.
Also, it's like a cigarette case back when everybody smoked. Like there is something about, hey, this is part of this is one of the things I put in my pocket, or I put in my purse every single morning after I shower and get dressed.
Yeah.
And when
it's a personal item.
And when I put it on the desk or the table where I'm going out to eat, or the bar next to me, the choice that I made and the fact that I wanted something expensive and flashy looking versus something that was simple and practical also says something. So that it really is a personal item. It's not, that's why I want to repeat, it's not necessarily crass to think that there are people who will want like a titanium body, something that has like an interesting new design that telegraphs that this is something that you need to bring Johnny Ive back as a consultant just to do the voiceover to explain exactly the bezels have been ground to a tolerance.
It's like jewelry.
Hitherto was not possible.
It's personal. This is an object that we handle all the time, every day.
Yeah. And it does circle back to something that Alex said earlier, that there are enthusiasts, there are genuine enthusiasts, just like there are people who, like if I do have friends who have sports cars and they can't, when they can easily explain why this car was worth $140,000, even though to me, it's a car that will take you to the train station and back again, and you can get some groceries in the back seat. There are people who want to know, here is how the engine aspirates, here's the displacement, here is the overdrive, here is basically how the suspension was put together, here's how it raises and lowers itself depending on the road conditions, whereas I don't care about that. But for these people, they are enough of an enthusiast about this vehicle, about cars in general, that this is a value added benefit that not a lot of people are going to get, but those people are going to want to pay for, because that's their bread and butter.
By the way, the 1 terabyte iPhone Pro Max is only $1,600, so don't get all worried about your $2,000.
Liar!
Although there are rumors that you may have spent more because you got it bedazzled. I don't know, but there are rumors that it will be more. That the top prices are going to go up a little bit. So we'll watch. I think there's some room there. I really do. There are many great Gatsbys in this world of ours.
Yes.
All right, let's
without a lot of the problems of Gatsby.
Hopefully, one hopes. Let's take a break, and if you will, prepare your picks of the week. Our show today brought to you by my email service, Fastmail. I love Fastmail. I've been saying this for a long time. If you care about email, you should not be using free email. You should not be using email for which you are the product. You should be using email that you are the customer, email with good support, good features, email that protects your privacy. That's Fastmail. I can go on and on about the features of Fastmail because I've been a customer for more than a decade. This has been my main email provider. Incredible spam protection that's completely configurable. They use SpamSieve on the server side, and you can write your own rules. if you want to. They have an incredible system, so you can actually have your domains go through Fastmail, so that I have many domains, and many of them are actually the DNS is provided by Fastmail. Now you can add or buy a domain through Fastmail, and it'll set up all the records for you. Now, what do you get? Well, the reason I do this is because Fastmail works with DKIM and all of the authentication protocols to make sure your email is going to go everywhere. It lets you send and receive emails from your own domain. You can have unlimited email addresses within that domain. I love that because, I have a variety of domains for different purposes, and even within that, infinite email addresses. They also have this new masked email address, which lets you use a private email address every time you sign up for a product or service. If you're using Fastmail with our other sponsor, Bitwarden, for instance, or 1Password, when it creates a password, it can create a unique email address at the same time using Fastmail. Fastmail, of course, works with any email client. It's true IMAP, implemented using the open source Cyrus server. And by the way, they're very good open source contributors. They constantly contribute back upstream to the servers. But it also has an incredible app on the iPhone, on Android, or the web app, which has a lot of great features. For instance, they just added quick settings, which lets you quickly choose a new theme. You can switch between light and dark mode, change your text size without even leaving the Fastmail screen. I like that because I can get the size just what I want looking at it. Quick settings also offers options related to the Fastmail screen you're viewing, like that masked email address. You can show or hide your reading pane, switch between folders and labels, and more. By the way, Gmail, which is not a true IMAP implementation, uses labels. IMAP uses folders, but Fastmail has done it so that you can use either, which is fantastic. You can auto-save contacts. Whenever I reply to somebody, they automatically get added to my contact list, which then goes back to my filter rules, very sophisticated filter rules, one of which is if you're not on my contact list, I'm going to downgrade your email, and if you are in my contact, my address book, if I have conversed with you before, I upgrade your email so I see the important emails. You can choose to show public images of senders from external services like Gravatar. I really love that. You can set default reminders for events, change how invitations are handled. That's really important if you get a lot of invitations. In fact, I've moved all my calendar and address book services off of Google onto Fastmail. So Fastmail does notes, calendar, contacts, and email for me. It's the best. For over 20 years, Fastmail has been a leader in email privacy. This is one of the reasons I moved there. They don't sell advertising. They keep my data private. They don't sell it to marketers. The Fastmail team believes in working for customers as people to be cared for, not products to be exploited. No advertising, no advertisers, no marketers. You pay for free email with your privacy. I got to tell you, at Fastmail, your data stays yours with better productivity features, incredible support for as little as $3 a month. Fastmail has better spam filters, no ads, incredible productivity tools. Obviously, I can go on and on. I am a huge Fastmail advocate, and I have been for all the years I've been using them. It's very easy to move to Fastmail. Import your old email server into your in-mail box. And you can also, by the way, continually get mail from an old address, which makes it very easy to switch over. Fastmail's moving email forward. They propose new internet standards and open source innovations that power many other email services. But don't get stuck with a substandard email provider. This is the one, Fastmail. Reclaim your privacy, boost productivity. You will actually love your email again. Fastmail. Try it now. 30 days free. Fastmail.com/twit. You know I've been recommending this for years. It's just the way to go. Fastmail.com/twit. If you care about email, don't use the free services. Use an email that cares about you. Fastmail.com/twit. We have some. I want to just quickly mention some big events coming up on our club, Club Twit. This Thursday, Rod Pyle, the host of This Week in Space, a show that launched in the club and is now out in public. We'll be doing a fireside chat with Ant Pruitt, our community manager. We've got Home Theater Geeks now. Scott Wilkinson's Classic is back. We're looking at bringing back other shows and introducing other shows, all in the club, because the club members Pay for it at $7 a month. They get ad-free versions of all of our shows. They get these special events. They get access to the Club Twit Discord. Ant's going to be doing a live photo critique session August 4th. We have a photo walk planned at the end of next month, by the way. I want you to put this in your calendar. Save the date, August 26th, Saturday, 6 p.m. If you're in the Northern California area, Ant and I and Elisa and a bunch of us are going to go down and take some pictures in Petaluma. Stacy's Book Club is also coming up in August. And then in September, very excited about this, a fireside chat. You may remember Hugh Howey did an interview with Ant. He's the guy who wrote the Wool book series on which the Silo TV series was based. Really great books. He and Daniel Suarez, his friend and buddy, are going to be joining Ant, and I think I might wedge my way into this conversation as well because I love Daniel. On September 7th at 2 p.m. Pacific, a members-only event. So these are all, we're trying to make the club something you want to be part of. We got the Discord. We have ad-free versions of all the shows. We have special shows that we don't put out anywhere else because the club members support it. And I think with all of that, you might say, well, how much is that going to cost? It's $7 a month. That's it. Because we want to make it affordable for everybody. So if you're not yet a member of Club Twit and you want to support what we do and keep it going, it really helps. I know we have ads for the non-club members. That's how we pay for those shows. But ads are a hit and miss business, to say the least. We really like the idea of having a consistent revenue from our listeners so that we can make the best possible stuff for you. Twit.tv/clubtwit. There's $7 a month. There's $84 a year. There's a family plan, and there's corporate memberships as well. Twit.tv/clubtwit. Thank you for your support in advance. That's kind of my pick of the week, but let's find out what Jason Snell has for his pick of the week this week. I like
going
the
for
name.
A blast for the past. So this is a classic iPhone game, Ridiculous Fishing. It was a big hit a long time ago. It's sort of gone by the wayside as they do. The developer of it basically went out of business. They shut down the studio. But Apple Arcade, in part of its attempts to get classic iPhone games back on the platform and up to date, went to the original people who developed the game and got them to build a new modern version of Ridiculous Fishing for Apple Arcade called Ridiculous Fishing EX. If you don't remember Ridiculous Fishing, you cast a line, you're a guy in a boat, and you try to dodge the fish and get your line as low. Once it hits a fish, you got to grab all the fish and bring them back up, and then it throws them in the air, and then you shoot them out of the air with a gun. It's ludicrous, but it's fun and really well done. And also, just from a game preservation standpoint, the fact that Apple Arcade is going back to some of these old classic iPhone games that are basically haven't been updated because there has been no business model to make sense of it. And essentially, I think, give money to the developers to update them and bring them back in Apple Arcade, even from a company that basically shut down. But the developers are all still out there. Like Zach Gage, the great iPhone app game developer, is one of the people involved in this game. And they've added some new features. The graphics look better. There's a weird TikTok-like thing which shows people fishing. There's all sorts of strange stuff in there. But the core of the game is the mechanic that made it such a great game back in the day on the iPhone. So if you're an Apple Arcade person, this is one of many classic iPhone games that is now back in the store in the arcade section. So Ridiculous Fishing, check it out.
I think that's so cool that they're bringing those back. These are games that resonate because we played them when we were younger, and
slightly younger, but
slightly, yeah.
Yeah,
no, it's just it's great to bring
Remember
back.
the 2010s? Oh yes.
Oh, those were the days. I loved those. All right, I'm downloading it right now. Ridiculous Fishing from Apple Arcade.
Does what it says on the box.
It's ridiculous, and it's fishing. I hope so. There are others that do they have a section where they say like back?
Yeah,
there's
a revived classics section where they brought back like Flight Control. I think is in there now, right? Which is a game that everybody loved, but it also just kind of died on the vine because you do a bunch of OS updates and then it doesn't really work right anymore. And so they're paying to bring a bunch of that stuff back. Plus, new titles and stuff that is unlocked and doesn't have in-app purchases. I think Apple Arcade, they did a kind of course correction about a year ago, and it's been a really interesting new selection of games that they put in there.
Good.
And old new games,
Yeah, I guess it's under the Timeless Classics
That's it.
section. Ridiculous fishing. Andy Yanako, your pick of the week.
My pick of the week is time to sad event from last week. 2009 in January, Apple did their very, very last keynote at Macworld Expo in San Francisco. And that was for their very last one. And there was some announcements, not a whole lot of really cool stuff. I refreshed my memory by reading live coverage written on the fly by no less luminaries than Jason Snell and Dan Morin, in which I learned that they were really, really happy that cut, copy, and paste was finally coming to the iPhone.
Yay!
Again,
wow.
We were relying on, there was smaller stuff that made us really happy because there was still a rebuilding year. But at the very, very end, and it was also unique for another sad reason. This was the first one that was not keynote that wasn't delivered by Steve Jobs. Just a couple of weeks earlier, before this keynote in January of 2009, he had announced he was taking medical leave from his CEO positions and all of his duties at Apple. So this was kicked off by Phil Schiller. Must have been a very, very hard time for everybody on stage and backstage to put this together, knowing that the big guy was not going to be there. But they did close it off in style because, as they often did back then, they got, because of iTunes being a big thing, they had access to really good talent to close out the keynote by doing a set. And who did they get in 2009 but Mr. Tony Bennett himself, who did 3 or 4 incredible numbers. I think that he led off with The Best Is Yet to Come, I think possibly at Apple's suggestion. It is one of his classics. And so this is, it was, of course, live streamed on QuickTime. So go on to either YouTube or go on to the Internet Archive at archive.org. You can find copies of it. Scroll all the way down to about 5 minutes before the end, and you will hear Tony Bennett. God, all but for the last 3 years of his life, he was in his prime. And even when he was not in his prime, he was still nothing less than great as a singer. You'll understand why people were so excited to go to Macworld keynotes back then, even without Steve Jobs, although Steve Jobs was a very, very big, sorely missed part of it. It was an exciting time to be there. I'm also going to recommend don't just go, I'm sure that you've heard I Left My Heart in San Francisco like 1,000 times since Mr. Bennett died a few days on Friday. However, go to Apple Music, go to Spotify, whatever, get the complete Tony Bennett, Bill Evans recordings. He created his own label, and he got to do absolutely whatever he wanted to do. And he decided, Bill Evans, the magnificent jazz pianist, I want to basically do 2 albums with him, and we're just going to sing songs together. It's just him playing it's just one of the greatest singers of the 20th century, singing, being backed up by one of the greatest jazz musicians of the 20th century, just on piano. They're simple, they're bare, and they're devastating. Okay. I'm serious. Whatever emotion you're having, you'll find tracks there that will intensify it and magnify it. This isn't put on a happy face. This is, you must believe in spring, that spring will come, just as the flower dies underneath the snow and believes that spring will come and it will bloom anew. It's just magnificent from start to finish. So two recommendations, one free, one you're going to have to hand over personal data to a monopoly to let them know what you're into. Tony Bennett. I suggest that you buy it because it's going to be.
Bill Evans is incredible. Tony Bennett's incredible. I remember running into him at KGO. He was doing an interview at the radio station, and I remember him saying, and it was probably right about this time, he's in his late 80s, that he still took music lessons, singing lessons every week. Yeah. He says, I'm a guy. Women can sing easily, but we have to work a little harder at it. And I thought this is one of the greats of all time.
I've been doing nothing. I'm a huge fan. I bought. I don't know how I bought The Art of Excellence in the early 80s. This is before his MTV Renaissance, but something about that cassette spoke to me when I was a teenager, and I bought it, and I became a huge fan from then on. And I was so impressed. I was reading all the dug up interviews and all the quotes, especially from his the 70s, his 70s, 80s, and 90s, when he's talking about, he's like 90 years old, 91 years old at this point, and when they're talking about future, what he's going to do in the future. So, I'm studying a whole book of like Ellington pieces. I'm like, you have to, you're like studying this. Like, there's still some standards that you don't just walk up to the mic, knock it out, and then go home and play video games. Like, no, he's still learning, he's still studying, and boy, did that show off. I'll stop now, but oh my goodness, what a talent.
On Friday, we went to see a concert in Napa, a band called Train, which is also a very well-known San Francisco band. And at the very end, they put up a big picture of the Golden Gate Bridge, started playing Tony Bennett, and the whole band turned around and bowed to Tony Bennett. It was really kind of a beautiful thing. That's great. I did not. I must have been there, but I don't remember. Maybe I wasn't there. I forgot about that. To see Tony Bennett singing.
I've seen. I won't read the whole list, but I've seen so many of my favorite acts just by virtue of the fact that I was at like an Apple press event.
Yep.
And seeing U2 do like a 5-song set in front of 150 people, seeing Foo Fighters do an entire set in front of 800 people in a small theater, and then like realizing, oh, I just jostled Mr. Pat Smear, and I don't know.
Pretty amazing, isn't it?
And I want to tell him how incredible he was. He's been like pre Foo Fighters and post Foo Fighters, but I don't know whether I call him Mr. Smear or Pat or whatever. I don't want to put on airs for Mr. Smear.
Mr. Alex Lindsay, pick of the week.
Wouldn't it be excellent if I could just call Pat and say it's me? Saturday Night Live.
Is Pat around? Just tell him it's me.
What is it like? He has 1,000 friends. Anyway.
Thank you for getting that reference. Thank you. That's a true friend.
Anyway, I ran into this accidentally over the weekend and was just kind of blown away. There's this, I don't know about the magazine, but there is a YouTube channel called Mother Grid. And if you're into doing what I do, it's really cool. So Mother Grid magazine, it is a breakdown. And specifically the video I would watch is they break down the Metallica, the Metallica tour that's going on right now, and just the tech that it takes to get it done. So it's not the tour itself; it is the guys in the back talking about. They've got he was like, "Well, we've got 192 audio channels. The 192 audio channels for the concert." And he goes, "That may seem like a lot, but you have to remember there's 4 drum sets, and each one has 30 channels, like 30 mics. And so you just get the scale at which these things run. And so I would, if you do what I do, if you do production, like event production, I started going through the channel and I was like, oh, it's pretty nifty. like there's a lot of data, some stuff that I would know, some stuff like they were using an audio pipeline that I'm not familiar with. So I was like, now I have to study. And so it's pretty slick. So I would highly recommend it. The other thing that I know we just talked about music, but I was going to throw it in there. I just saw, I don't go to concerts much anymore. But I actually went to see a band that I hadn't seen in probably 20 years, and Toad the Wet Sprocket.
Oh my God, there's a name.
Played at Hop Monk.
Good place to see him.
Hey, Alex, I went to that concert.
Did you really?
Jason was there
we were
too.
Both there?
Well, I think they played 2 nights, but I went to one of them. Yeah, absolutely.
Did you go to one last week?
I'm from the 90s.
Or 2 weeks, or 2
weeks ago, yeah.
Oh yeah. So the one last Thursday or last Wednesday was the last. Did they give you one of these? Did you get one?
Oh yeah, I've got it. It's right over there. Yeah,
the poster and the jam bar. The jam bar is actually pretty good. They played. It was the last show of the tour. I'm sure both shows are really great. Just such a great band. And Glenn is such a great guy. Just the lead singer. And did he play Mercy Street on your concert?
No. Wow.
He has sprinkled it. You can find one version of it on YouTube if you search. He played it, I think in January he played it. I saw him play it by himself a couple years ago or a year ago. And anyway, I'm a big Toad Wet.
You got to tell us about this fan. Before the event, not after the event. I would have gone.
I should have. It was sold out.
I bet it was. Hop Monk's a tiny little venue. You could stand right there practically on the stage. You can get right up there.
Yeah, it was a really, really, really great show. And he's played this, anyway, they have a great, there's a company that's doing like a lot of PR, so that Hop Monk has become this like the outdoor theater all summer, playing a lot of great stuff. But anyway, Toad the Wet Sprocket's great. They played when I was 30 years ago when I worked at a radio station. They played outside. We didn't have any permits. We just built a stage and put some speakers up, and they played. And I remember it got really cold. It was 70 degrees. It was on June in Pittsburgh, which should be very hot. It was 70 degrees on Monday, and on Tuesday it was 40 degrees, and on 80, and then it was 70 degrees again on Wednesday. And of course, they played on Tuesday. And it was funny. I had the opportunity to have lunch with Glenn on last week, and I said, the first time we met, you were playing at this radio station. It got really cold, and he goes, "Yeah, my mandolin broke."
He remembers it. It was so cold.
Like
my mandolin broke.
Front popped off. It was so cold, and so
if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So anyway, the really, really great band. I would highly recommend checking them out. I just forgot how much I love that band until I saw them again. I mean, I listened to them relatively often, but I just hadn't seen them live, and they're just a really great live band. So if you see them, they're off tour now.
What's the name come from?
I think it comes from Monty Python.
Yeah, it's a Monty Python. It's a reference in a Monty Python sketch, and there's a story about how Eric Idle was in a taxi cab in New York City, and a song finished playing, and the DJ said, "That was Toad the Wet Sprocket," and he went, Wait, what? What?
He didn't know there was a band.
Now it's a band? Yeah, exactly.
That's fantastic. Well, there you go. But the pick is Mother Grid's and their YouTube channel, youtube.com at Mothergrid magazine. If you want to, I guess you could just search for Mother Grid. Event, technology, news, and documentations.
It's really good.
It's German. That's why it's a little strange there.
Some of it is in German, so it is. So not all of it though, and that's probably why I hadn't seen it before. But you could, if you're into events and especially big concerts, you can learn a lot. Watching how these things get built up.
I always think that's fascinating. The behind the scenes stuff. It's kind of amazing. Thank you, Mr. Alex Lindsay. Go to officehours.global if you find all of this stuff interesting. That's a place you can talk about production to your heart's content. Today's show, just a general Q&A, but you can join the Zoom. There's an invitation form there, so you can join the Zoom or just watch them on YouTube or at officehours.global. AI productivity yesterday. Game sound tomorrow. Wow, you guys just talked about everything.
Rob Bridget is coming on. Rob Bridget is, like, when it comes to game sound, he's a big deal.
Nice.
And he just finished a book on it, and he's worked closely with Dolby, and so he's done he's a really, really one of the world experts in game audio. So he's going to be on.
And what are boomerang carnets when they're at home? What is that?
So when
that's coming up Friday.
I asked them to come on.
It sounds like Toad the Wet Sprocket, actually.
It is. So when you take a lot of gear, so if you're taking a couple $100,000 of gear out of the country, what you don't want to do is pay for the import duties when you bring it to France or Germany or England or Japan or whatever. So you have carnets, and these carnets are, you have to fill out these carnets that say, I'm only bringing this in temporarily. And it's a process. And we've used that. We obviously Pixel Core used them extensively. We used them. We probably worked with Boomerang maybe once a week because we were moving so much gear in and out of the country all the time. And so, and I just thought it'd be fun. I think that it's important for every time we brought somebody in, we were like, okay, now we're going to do a carnet, and this is how a carnet works. And you have to keep all the serial numbers. And we send it over. So a lot of times we can talk about things in office hours for a very long time. Like Friday, we had one where we did a whole hour on gaff tape, and onDay we just had a whole hour.
God, a whole hour?
Not on Friday, but we did a year ago. The whole hour on different kinds of gaff tape and how we gaff tape and how we use it and everything else. On Friday, we just did load in, load out, like literally as an hour of how we load in and how we load out of venues. In this case, I just feel like for people who haven't done a carnet yet, this is something that they need to understand.
Everything you'd ever need to know. And I love it that you just put it there. You don't explain it. You just put the title is Boomerang Carnet. You'll know if you need it.
If you need it. Yeah. Well, there's a little slightly more description in the emails that people get. So we send out emails every day.
Subscribe
if you go to our website,
that's a good idea.
Get the emails and you get a little more description of what it is. Because I think in the email you get like all these links to all the different resources on Boomerang and everything else.
Nice.
But the it's a really, like, what happens is people start doing things with their cameras, and then they start getting slightly bigger jobs, and they can't figure out how to get all this gear.
Right.
So what we did is we would smuggle it in and out. We put it into regular, like you do all this weird stuff, and then someone said, "Why don't you get a carnet?" And you're like, "What's a carnet?" And they're like, "Oh, it's the way that you get gear in and out of countries." And you're like, "Oh." So I'm trying to get past that, get everyone past that today on Friday. So that's what Boomerang is.
Ladies and gentlemen, Andy Ihnatko, where are you going to be next on WGBH?
I'm on Thursday at 12:30 in the afternoon Eastern Time. Go to WGBHnews.org to listen it live. Let's stream it live or later.
Anything else you'd like to plug? He's, of course, the host of the Material Podcast on Relay FM.
And Florence Ion is coming back after her medical leave. So this week. So finally we're double again.
Yay.
I'm doing solos for like the past 2.5 months, which has been fun, but it's a lot more fun when you're writing, when you're having a conversation between two people, as opposed to, here I am, last survivor at Ice Station Zebra, 30 years, with a microphone and some ideas in my head that I'm now going to share.
Yeah, I hate doing a show by myself. I really do. I understand. Jason,
it was fun last week. Last week for the bonus episode, I read I made an audiobook of a P.G. Woodhouse story.
How fun! Did you do the Jeeves accent and all that?
I did. It was a Jeeves story. As I explained to the listeners, I will not do British accents for all the other characters, but you have to.
You got to do.
You must. It's only proper to do
excuse me,
Jeeves
sir,
accent, sir.
But it seems the media have arrived at the front door. Jason Snell is the founder and editor of Six Colors, a website about Apple and related technologies. He's also the founder of The Incomparable, a weekly columnist at Macworld, the author of Take Control of Photos, and the host of numerous podcasts.
Speaking of reading things aloud, thank you for reading my page aloud. If I had to plug something today, I realize I never plug this. Six Colors, Dan Morin and I do a weekly podcast for members of Six Colors that I get more compliments about than any other podcast I do, which I find weird because it's a members only kind of thing. Anyway, for $6 a month or $60 a year, you can listen to the Six Colors. Used to be secret podcast, but then we realized we should probably tell people that we do it so that they'll pay for it. Anyway, it is one of many benefits you get by being a member, but we do it every week, and it is a very good podcast. We try to keep it loose. We're just checking in on what happened during the week, and sometimes there's, I'm doing laundry in the background, or my cat is meowing, or my dog is barking, and those all go in the podcast too.
Nice.
So people should check that out if they would like.
I guess it makes sense
if it's possible to get more.
That Six Colors membership should be $6. That makes sense. You're kind of stuck, aren't you?
Honestly, I was gonna raise the price, and I realized I just can't. So I added a couple higher levels, and actually the higher tiers of the podcast you can listen live, and there's a longer version of it that we do an extra segment. But it's very hard to say goodbye to the $6 or $60 a year, given the branding.
You're really
stupid.
In there.
Stupid number 6 being so low.
You should have made it 100 colors, and you could be making some money at this. By the way, Micah Sargent had a great time at the Incomparable cookout, or whatever you call that.
Yeah, we had a meetup of all the hosts because we're all scattered all over the world, and 24 of us got together in Portland, Oregon a couple of weekends ago. And yes, we recorded some podcasts because podcasters, they do that.
I think that's so cool. Yeah, we should do that probably. Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Jason. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Leo.
Great to see all of you. Thank you for joining us. We do this show every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC, which means you can watch us do it live at live.twit.tv. Watch or listen. There's a live audio stream as well. People who watch live often chat live with us at irc.twit.tv, where you'll meet such luminaries as Scooter X, the world-famous Scooter X, and Mashed Potato, and Gumby, and Osned, and Co-ops, and PC Guy 8088, who I don't know why he listens to Security Now, but he does. MacBreak Weekly. Oh, that's why he's here for Security Now. Now I understand. You can also chat with us if you're a club member in the Discord. We have a chat dedicated to the show there. After the fact, on-demand versions of the show, audio or video, available at twit.tv/mbw. When you're there, you can also click a link that'll take you to our YouTube channel dedicated to MacBreak Weekly, and you can even subscribe in your favorite podcast player that way You'll get it automatically the minute it is available. Thank you all for being here. Now I have to tell you, it's time to get back to work because break time is over. Bye-bye.
Hey, I'm Rod Pyle, editor-in-chief of Ad Astra Magazine, and each week I join with my co-host to bring you This Week in Space, the latest and greatest news from the final frontier. We talk to NASA chiefs, space scientists, engineers, educators, and artists, and sometimes we just shoot the breeze over what's hot and what's not in space, books, and TV. And we do it all for you, our fellow true believers. So whether you're an armchair adventurer or waiting for your turn to grab a slot in Elon's Mars rocket, join us on This Week in Space and be part of the greatest adventure of all time.